and welcome to the MinnMax Show, a place about games, friends, and getting better. My name is Ben Hansen, and I'm not alone. I'm joined by Kyle Hilliard.
Hello.
Haley McLean.
Hello.
And that's proof that I'm not alone, but it still goes on. Sarah Podzorski.
Hello.
Leo Vader.
We're simmering to a boil, folks.
Jeff Marchiafava.
That's me.
Kelsey Lewin.
Lewin?
Sure. Janet Garcia is also here.
It's me.
And Jacob Geller.
Hello.
Is anybody else hiding behind the scenes? All right, this is a full house here. We have everybody because this is the grand finale of MinnMax's Game of the Year debates, what we affectionately call the 210s. Some would say it's the top 20 games of 2023. We like to call it the 210s in honor of the two ends. If you missed last week's episode, what's wrong with you? We built out a list of what we feel are the greatest games. Hang on, there's a freaking dog on this duck. The greatest games of 2023.
How'd that get there? That's to remind everyone about the true meaning of Game of the Year, which is the holidays.
But we built it up and then we whittled it down. We have locked in. These are the 210s. But as you can see from everybody looking at it, this is clearly the wrong order because as you know in your heart of hearts, there is an objective correct order for the top 20 games of the year, which is my opportunity to remind you, this is a purely subjective list. We're not going off the game industry at large. All we're going off of is our own collective passion. And again, I say it every time, you will disagree with this list, and that needs to be okay. Because every once in a while, I feel bad for the people melting down in the comments. We're like, that's not how I would do it. It's like, yes, you are not the 9 of us. I understand that. So thank you for being patient for all this stuff.
We can say it's the Final Fantasy 16 enjoyers.
I didn't want to point fingers.
You can call them out by name.
No.
I'd also be upset if I wasn't
cool
the
and
9 of
normal
us.
about that game.
We love all fans.
I also do want to say, if we get enough comments, we will change it.
Yeah, if you hate us enough, you know. Well,
Yeah, it's not so much
tier?
the volume as the passion of their arguments.
Right, that's what we're measuring here. It's all about the passion.
Should we do a Patreon tier for if some absorbent
Change
amount of
our
money?
opinion?
Like you can
Yeah.
you can reorder our
Absolutely, we should.
than you
I don't
think.
have any dignity. Yeah.
Actually, Kyle, we do have that tier, and it's the $2 tier, y'all, because if you're a supporter on Patreon, you can vote for the Community Hive Minds 210s. We'll be sharing that on the next episode of the podcast, where you can choose, as far as the Hive Mind is concerned, exactly what are truly the objective takes for the best games of the year. So prove us wrong by jumping into the $2 tier on Patreon. That's all we ask, please. Here's the thing. I asked, is there anybody else on this call? And maybe there is, but only through text format. Because as you might remember this year, I was at a commission for a couple of months on paternity leave. And so we brought in Jenna Stoeber for those 2 months to help out with production. She did a great job. And we brought in Kyle Bosman, formerly of Easy Allies, to host the podcast for 1 month. And so it's like, well, it's not fair to talk about 2023 and MinnMax's takes on games in 2023 without giving them some tip of the cap somewhere. But obviously having 11 people on a call, it would break. It'd be unusable.
Disqualifying a game that came out during that period might be good, though.
Oh, that's an interesting point. All right, good
remember
tone
exactly
to set things out for. I love it. No, so what we did is we reached out to Jenna and Kyle to be like, hey, this is our list for the 210s. What did we blow? Well, what mistake did we make here? And so they each have an honorable mention. So let's see, honorable mention. Jenna Stoeber. I'm surprised we didn't mention this. Thirsty Suitors, says Jenna Stoeber. She says, what if instead of defeating your 6 evil exes, you are the evil ex they have banded together to defeat? Thirsty Suitors is a turn-based combat and skateboarding and cooking game with a killer soundtrack. The animation is elaborate and bonkers. Why pet the dog when you can have a secret handshake with a dog? And the emotional core reminds us that acknowledging our mistakes is the first step to not repeating them. Developers of Thirsty Suitors, you can just copy and paste this and make it the Steam description if you'd like.
That's really good.
Jenna's gonna do it better.
I kind of thought you were reading the Steam description.
That's how good of a writer Jenna
New
is.
career path?
Yeah.
I forgot how good petting the dog is in that game. It's like a high bar. If you're interested in that in a game, it's the best petting there is.
Okay. Well, might I interest you, Leo, in Kyle Bosman's honorable mention for the 210s in 2023, Final Fantasy 16. A lot of dogs.
Oh, he's one of the people in the comments.
He's actually rallying everybody. So Kyle Bosman says, it comes to me as no surprise that MinnMax's weekly towel washers would make a point to spitefully snub Final Fantasy 16 in favor of many obviously inferior titles. It has better art direction than Octopath Traveler 2. It has better square pushing than Sea of Stars. It has stronger dialogue than Chia. The soundtrack is sublime, besting even Hitman Freelancer. Above all else, people forget this. There's just something really nice about riding a chocobo on an adventure. Also, there is no debate here. Simply better accents than Xenoblade 3 Future Redeemed. Kyle Bosman, ladies and gentlemen.
I've never been more confident that game has bad writing than to compare it to the writing of Chia, a game with almost no writing in it. There's like
I noticed
20 lines of dialogue.
He didn't compare soundtracks of Octopath Traveler 2 or like...
This guy's
hit him on all the weak points.
He knew what he was doing.
Also, what a coward. He won't even come on this podcast to defend it. Yeah, he sends little
A
text
hero
and
of
runs
the
away.
people, the Final Fantasy 16 fans will call him.
Yeah.
So brave.
Speaking of brave, Leo said, actually, could I go back and say one more thing about a game that I forgot to say last week?
Yeah. Actually, Chan 1150 in the Backstage Pass chat reminded me, so I appreciate that. Friends vs. Friends has a lot of really cool cards in it. One of my favorites is Nuke. This is what I meant to say last time. Oh, yeah. You play the Nuke card, it detonates the map, and you're playing on a new map, which is dirt, rubble, and you're, behind burned out buses and stuff. It's a totally new map. Did that a bunch of times, then eventually found out, when I nuke, and then somebody else nuked, they also had the nuke card. Suddenly, we're on a meteor in space, bouncing around in low gravity, shooting each other. And I haven't even done this, but I looked it up online. If you nuke more times, eventually it's just a gray box.
Yes.
Like video game design level.
Is that how it works in real life? Is that what would happen?
One way to find out.
I do think there's a secret skybox out there, Jacob. I do think so.
That's right. Many religions are based on a secret skybox in a lot of ways. Now that you think about it.
You said that so seriously, Sarah.
All right.
That's what Smash Brothers is about.
That's right.
That's the subtle sort of,
I
think, Mario Wonder Friends versus Friends swap. Yeah, let's do it.
It's not too late. God,
it's very fun. It's very fun.
Only Jeff can do the hot swaps.
Yeah.
I feel that's Jeffem's thing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I feel like Kyle's wrong. I feel like Mario Wonder should be probably at the top of this list. And I'm ready to be a hero with people. All right. Number 20.
Top if you look at it upside down.
All right. This is the list from the bottom up. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed. Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon. Fire of Rubicon? Fires.
Multiple fires.
Okay. Shadow Gambit, The Cursed Crew. Venba, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, Cities Skylines 2, Octopath Traveler 2, Chants of Sonar, Lies of P, The Making of Karateka, Marvel, Spider-Man 2, Chia, Sea of Stars, Hi-Fi Rush, Day of the Diver, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Hitman, Freelancer. All right, let's do the old easy dividing line, chunk, separating the two tens. It's an easier distinction of what goes where, what feels like an upper 10, what feels like a lower 10. Some would call it the crispy bubblers of the slam dunks, if you'd be so bold. Jacob Geller, what looks off to you right now? What should be, if you had to move something up or move something down, I guess, what direction would you take?
Gosh. I think, and I am saying this as one of the biggest fans of this game, I think that Resident Evil 4 Remake does not need to be at number 5. I think it could be in a more modest spot on our 210s.
What does that modesty look like to you as a super fan?
Maybe 10, maybe like 12. Somewhere around there, either top of the second 10 or bottom of the first 10.
Let's slot it in at like number 11, let's say, for a rough slapshot placeholder for Resident Evil 4 Remake could go. We talked about it a little bit last week about remakes on the list, and Jacob, you were quick to pounce on it's a remake, but there's so much new stuff in there that it's not exactly in the same league as common remakes that appeared this year.
Yeah, look, MinnMax had Resident Evil 2 Remake as its game of the year, right?
Yeah.
I think it is, everything that it does exceptionally well. It is, Ben, I remember you saying, like, why aren't there more games that are just, like, good the whole way through?
I mean, yes, I think about that a lot with Resident Evil 4 Remake. I know we did the deepest dive on it, but I feel like I was screaming it the whole time, just like, what is so magical about this game's formula that other games can't get in the flow of? And the original and also this just has such a satisfying, I don't know, gameplay loop. Just every bit of combat, every little puzzle building up, just fueling the next moment to moment. Like, when I think of Resident Evil 4 Remake, it's like, I was thinking about this morning in terms of just, when you look at the games of 2023, and if you're trying to recommend a game, it's like, well, if you've never played Resident Evil 4, like, Resident Evil 4 Remake, it's tough to say, you will have a good time playing this game. You will have a blast playing the Resident Evil 4 Remake. You know, it's like, it is the most easy recommendation, I feel like, out of every list here if you've never played that original. It's just a freaking blast to go through.
And I think about like what
if you like survival horror games, you will like it. I feel like saying you would recommend it to anybody as your first go-to game. Yeah.
I don't know, but think about what they added, like the double chainsaw grannies. What a top moment when Leon does he's a little backflip with the double chainsaw grannies. The entire like Luis co-op minecart ride.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm fine with it being like lower, but like, let's give this game its due. The only thing that I didn't like was they took out the tri-corner hat from that one guy.
Salazar.
And that was unforgivable for me personally. But other than that, I think they really just knocked it out with like just making it better.
Yeah.
No, what are you buying anymore too, right? Aren't we missing that?
No, what are you buying?
Bunch of stupid lines instead.
Oh, my back and all that crap. Yeah.
I think, you know, and something, the tri-corner hat notwithstanding, it's like maintaining the goofiness of the 2005 game is really great. And I'm so glad that they did it. You know, the fact that Leon still says, "Where's everyone going? Bingo." The fact that they gave him new one-liners that feel like they should be in the original game. There's a thing where Leon kills a bunch of knights in shining armor, and then he says "Nighty night, knights," and that's a new line, but it feels like it was like from the original game.
Yeah, no, it is unbelievable. There's something that like, something about them upping the fidelity to such a ridiculous degree. This game looks so good. I mean, like the first environment you go into, that first house, like just the amount of detail they're packing into every little environment like that, having that level of fidelity makes it more of a comedy. Because if you're making everything look that exquisite, and at the same time, Leon is just the silliest MFer in the world playing it straight, it just becomes that much funnier when he's shooting an old woman in the face and going like, next.
And, like, cows are being set on fire, like running through the field while you're being chased down by like Las Plagas. Like, it really is, you know, one of the best remakes of the year, but definitely one of the better games of the year, even though it's still a remake.
Yeah. Yeah. I also realized we forgot the best moment when he gets into the boat and he tries to start it and he goes, "Come on, you fill up the gas tank when it's empty."
I did love that, yeah.
Shout out as well to the ending when he says, "I'll give you a holy buddy." Like all of his really good lines.
It works on
just unbelievable. Levels. But yeah, like having twists on the formula for a game that everyone's played a lot, like the original Resident Evil 4, like for the super fans of Jacob Geller to be like, what do you mean? Going in the bell tower isn't the easy way just to cheese that opening village. It's going to collapse underneath you. Or just them just adding new stuff like the big old bull boys who are always just breathing heavily and charging at you with their weird bull heads and all that stuff. That like the Ashley sequence with the knights, like that entire environment is so fun and scary as hell.
Ashley's character, like the fact that they made Ashley, you know, a better character and kind of
bearable.
Yeah, she's getting there.
I also think the bonus modes in the game are incredibly fun. I brought up the DLC last week because I do think, you know, it's like, it is DLC. It was $10. The amount of stuff you get for $10 that like basically puts back the couple favorite moments of the game that were not in the remake. Like now we have the laser hallway again, and we have the hat, like it fight and stuff. No hat, unfortunately. And the
I'm really upset about that.
No hat. The Mercenaries mode is like the most fun arcade mode in a game, I think. Like if you want just like, you know, the kind of like, this isn't part of the game, this is just a score attack, nothing is better than the Mercenaries. And that was in the original as well, but like I'm so glad that it's still here. They didn't make you pay for it extra. Like, it's, it is an extraordinarily generous game.
Yeah. I
Maybe
get
it should be number 1.
honestly.
Maybe we should move it up to 10.
There's something
and
about.
we should take a look at what's in spot 10.
Look, I'll hear that argument for sure. I'll move it up to 10. There's something about that idea of like, it is a remake. It is dinged a little bit naturally because of that. Like, it's nice to celebrate new stuff. But at the same time, it's like, it's a game that most of us, if not all of us, played, and we all had a blast playing it. Like, I don't want to discredit Resident Evil 4 Remake just because, 80% of it is stuff we experienced back in 2005.
And they made Leon so hot. Like, what did we do to deserve this?
There's that chain scene.
Yeah. God, that was such a good scene.
Sarah, I was going through the best of for MinnMax and finding a bunch of clips from the Deepest Dive and stuff, and I forgot about you talking about how you'd want to be as sick as Ashley gets in that game just so Leon will hold your hand when you're on the operating table.
Yes!
Because you're just riveted by a laser on a table trying to get Las Plagas out of you. Resident Evil 4 Remake. I feel like lower top 10 is a worthy
I personally
spot.
think you could move it up 2 more slots.
You know what? Wasn't my
All right,
suggestion.
Haley. I mean, twist
Anyone
my
else?
arm. Twist my arm.
All right.
So
Okay.
Yeah, with this group, I see it. We stand Sea of Stars being above it.
I will say that's about where the maximum I would lift it up. Personally.
You would not put RE4 above Sea of Stars.
No.
And why is that, Haley?
Sea of Stars is rad. And I liked it more.
Yeah, no, that seems fair. That seems fair.
I mean, like, Resident Evil 4 holds a special place for me because my partner made me play it. That sounds like he's mean, but in a loving way, he made me play it. So I went into it being like, I won't like this. And I was like, this is one of the best video games of all time. Like, it's just one of those games you play, you're like, okay, you got me. Like, I can't even be better. Like, this is amazing. And then it's also like, and then all this time later, and it's the best remake of all time too. It's like, pick a lane, like, stop with the W's, like, calm down. Like, you truly can't, you can't fight it. Like, you just know it's a good game, even if it's not your thing, which it wasn't my thing. And I still know it's like one of the best games I've ever played.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do we feel about Sea of Stars? I know Kyle and Haley are the champions here. Where are you guys feeling is a good spot for that sucker?
What do you think, Kyle?
I mean, I'm in a position where I would move Sea of Stars and Resident Evil up both.
Yeah.
2 or 3 slots myself. I mean, I really love Sea of Stars a lot. The style of RPG in particular that I like, it's been a long time since someone's been able to sort of nail it so perfectly. Like, Sea of Stars is not unique in the sense of like someone made a throwback RPG. I mean, there was Chained Echoes months earlier. Those games exist and they are liked. But Sea of Stars was the first one in a long time to like really click with me. And just like, I love the art, I love the story, I love the music, I love the combat. So, I mean, I would move it above like Dave the Diver myself.
I would also agree it should be above Dave the Diver.
Ooh.
So I love Sea of Stars. I could not see it being higher than Hi-Fi Rush is my issue with
okay.
with that move.
Yeah, Kelsey.
See, I could agree with that, and I could argue that it should be above Dave the Diver and Dave the Diver below Hi-Fi Rush.
Okay,
Having played all 3 of those games.
Before we leave Sea of Stars too much, Kelsey, what are your thoughts as somebody who'd played a lot of RPGs this year? Like, not discounting the people who are like, well, RPGs aren't really my genre, but this one really clicked with me. I'm curious, somebody who's bathing in RPGs on a daily basis, what you thought of that thing?
That's me, just bathing in them.
What an image.
Sea of Stars is very good. It's very clearly like it's someone who liked Chrono Trigger and was like, I'm gonna make something like that, and that's not a bad thing at all.
Right.
Like, Chrono Trigger is one of the greatest RPGs of all time. What I really appreciated about it was it felt very intentionally crafted in its progression, I guess. Like, it's very, very difficult to grind in that game. It is almost explicitly discouraged by the game and just the way that it's kind of set up. You're going to be exactly at the right level they want you for every challenge. So it feels a tad like on rails in that respect, but also not in a not in a terrible way. Like it's not very open for a JRPG. It's a very authored experience, and I totally respect that. I don't really know where I'm going with that, because I don't think that's a ding or
no, it's interesting to bring up.
I think it's just like an interesting direction. But yeah, I really liked it. I don't think it did anything. Like, I think the stuff above it all did something really new and interesting and cool. I think Sea of Stars just like is a really good version of what it is.
Yeah, that's a really good distinction.
That's Kelsey. That's actually like almost literally the thesis of the first sentence of the review I wrote for it, which is funny. But yeah, it's also you could also perceive it as a reason to love it as well. You know,
if I'm looking at what's in the top 10 versus the bottom 10, I mean, I would love a better read on where we're all at collectively for Dave the Diver. It's currently sitting at number 5, which seems a bit high, but it's a game that's really tough not to love. I'm just trying to get a read on who's the hottest on this thing. Where are we at?
I guess I might be the hottest.
Okay.
It's my number 3.
Okay.
It's 6 for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And no one else has played it, or what's?
Yeah, I like it a lot, but it's not on my
I've played
list.
it.
I've played it. It's not on my list.
It's gonna maybe be number 10 on my list. Like, it's good. It'll make it. But yeah, I think it's very solid, and it very much belongs on the 210s. But
yes,
it feels high right now.
Jeff,
I played a lot of it too. I hit a little bit of a wall where I don't like. I don't know if I'm going to see it to the end. But up until that point, I like really loved it. And it's not like I hit some wall where I was like, oh, suddenly this sucks. I was just kind of ready to move on, you know, because it is a very it's a very much a loopy game. And yeah, I feel similar to Kelsey, like absolutely should be on the 210s. I really enjoyed my time with it. But yeah. I personally, it's a little high for me, but I'm not as passionate as Jeff or Haley.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, starting out, I had that same take, Kyle. I was kind of like, okay, one of those loops. This seems fun. And then I enjoyed what I played of it, but then hearing other people talk, like Haley, who has poured way too much time into it, just hearing that, like, oh, it just keeps getting deeper and they keep adding more systems, and you think it's a simple loop of like going fishing, then going back and filling out the restaurant, but it just keeps going beyond that and beyond that and beyond that until eventually, like, Haley, what are the systems towards the end of the game that unlocked that wowed you?
Well, there's just so much going on that I'm so surprised at such late game stuff. Like, not just farming and whatever, like there's like above ground farming, underground underwater farming and all that stuff that doesn't unlock until like so many hours in. That just like, and all that really does though, when you think about it, is like, that seems cool that it's such a late game unlock, but really all it does is optimize your money later on. As long as you're making steady money, like maybe it's not something that's a biggest concern. As someone who got really into its systems and like felt I was really trying to min-max that game, and like, how much money can I make in one day? Like, let's try it. And just like only getting the best ingredients for a week, making an insane amount of money in a day. I mean, like, that was really fun. I'm gonna try this now. Like, I was really just playing with its systems and stuff, and I had a lot of fun with that. But I can totally see how someone would do some of the loops, maybe get halfway through and bounce off. But that's too bad, because the story does do a lot of fun stuff at the end, especially too. Like, there's certain boss battles that I'm like, holy hell, the effort into this. Like, this feels so different from the entire rest of the game. Like, it's almost like a different engine is running this boss battle, because it's so different acting. And then the cutscenes, and there's like a nice story payoff, and it's like a nice little bow wrapped up, and you can keep playing after that if you want to keep playing. And I think it does everything it wants to do really well. And it's also like, it's kind of like an indie game in a trench coat, because like it has so much money behind it. That's why it's so polished and good. And right. It's and like the pixel art is I saw a lot of people having really interesting conversation about it, like what's an indie, which I thought was really cool to talk about, especially from my perspective, where I work with indie studios, is like, what is it? Like, what do we, like, everyone has a different word for or reason behind why they think an indie game is an indie game. And I think Dave the Diver was a fun one to think about, because it looks like an indie game, but what does that mean? Anyways, that's a whole separate conversation. I just think it was an interesting thing to come out this year that made me think about that. And because it had so much money behind it in its production, that's why it is so polished. It's one of the most polished games I've played in a long time. Like, every single aspect of it was very purposeful, fully realized, and I really love it for that. But yeah, like, I don't know if I like it more than like personally, I like Sea of Stars more than Dave the Diver because I think Sea of Stars is just a better experience overall, whereas Dave the Diver was fun for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Who has Dave the Diver on their personal top 10 list? Kelsey said it's going to be 10. Kyle Haley have it. Or sorry, Jeff Haley have it.
Don't put me in.
Sorry.
that group.
Does anybody else have it? Okay. I mean, I'm going to place it at a solid 14 at the moment.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. Let's dump it all the way to the bottom. Why not?
Did not expect
Jeff,
the
I didn't hear you
but
making
that's
a case for it. Please.
City Skylines 2 and Good Company. Hey guys, what's up?
You know what? I don't
Welcome
hate
to
it
the
down
trenches.
there as much as I like it. I don't hate it down there. I think that it's such a good year. There's so many good games. Maybe in a different year where I would fight for it harder, but I love the top half so far, so I'm fine with Dave the Diver being bumped down a bit, personally.
Jeff,
I'm not.
The floor is beyond yours.
No.
Please.
Honestly, like I haven't played Sea of Stars. So I can't make a comparison there, except that you're all saying like, yeah, it's a pretty it's like a classic JRPG, and God forbid we don't see any of those.
Shit, Jeff!
Honestly, like
Salt shaker.
Get him!
I didn't like Hi-Fi Rush. I know we have
let's
a
not
few
get crazy.
people who did, and other
Where
people
were you
who are
yesterday?
mixed
I
on
literally
it.
asked. I was like, did anyone also not
Dark
is
Jeff.
not in this game? And everyone
I
was
said
like,
it.
oh,
I said it yesterday.
I missed
will
you under
say it again.
the
Apparently, people
booze.
don't hear me. Yeah, we talked about all kinds of problems with Chia that we had yesterday in terms
Yep.
of the gameplay on that one. Like,
Hey, how about we light a candle instead of cursing the darkness here? Jeff?
Here's my argument. You prefaced Haley's gameplay of Dave the Diver saying, "Oh well, yeah, you played way too much of it." The thing is, this is one game.
I did not say that at all.
Yes,
You said
you
literally
said
too
you played
much,
too
yeah.
many hours.
Oh, maybe.
And the thing is, this is
Don't
one
check the
game
tape,
where
but it was a positive tape.
she actually
Check the
she
tape.
actually didn't, because it has just this endless, ridiculous amount of progression in depth into all of these different systems, on top of a core gameplay loop that is different from any other of these type of games. Like, there are so many farming games, there are so many fishing games. This one actually feels different from all of them, and is wrapped up in this just absurdity of a pixel art style that, I mean, yeah, it has a bigger budget than most indie games, but I'm not going to knock it for being one of the prettiest, most polished, deepest, longest playing indie cozy games that you can get.
Yep.
And still stylish, not just like saccharinely polished, but like the cutscenes are.
Yeah.
Every new cutscene I saw, of which there are many cutscenes, I was really stunned by just how fun they were to watch.
Yeah. So like 12? Jeff, where would you put it on this list? Where would you put it on this list?
It was where I would put it on the list.
Where was it?
It was like 5.
Trust
Yeah,
your,
it was 5.
I mean, come on.
I'll put it above, maybe above.
I
nine.
feel like Chia doesn't need to be this high. I'm gonna throw that out there, but I kind of already did that yesterday.
I
but
kind
still
of agree
feel the
that
same.
I don't
think-
think Chia
Is
could be
Chia
that high either.
pokeable?
I think Chia is extremely pokeable for going
Yeah,
to the
okay.
bottom of the list.
Interesting.
I mean, not very bottom. Let's not lose our minds here.
Not
but,
a 14, God forbid.
I mean, I love a Chia, but Chia feels like a solid 17 to me.
No, I mean, like a bunch of us played it and liked it.
Yeah?
More of us beat that than any other game besides Resident Evil 4 on here, probably, right?
Beat it?
Low Lies
I mean,
Peak.
actually,
And Alan Wake
probably
2?
true,
It's
but I
up
don't
there
think
with
that
those,
means.
anyway.
I don't think that means that it's a better game than other games. Like I beat
Well,
a lot of
I
games
honestly,
that aren't
Janet,
even on this list.
I think the rest of us have a higher bar for beating games than you do. Like, beating games really means something to me. I beat 3 games this year.
And Janet flies through so many.
One of those people who beat it, though, said they skipped a bunch of it because you can skip it, and
didn't
they
beat
didn't
it.
like what they were doing.
I didn't beat it.
Oh, you didn't beat it.
I didn't beat it. Leave me
so
alone.
You were skipping and then didn't beat it.
Yeah, what do you want from me, Jeff?
Yeah. Well, I think on that note, I only bring that up to say that I don't think I think it's challenging to add like an objective layer to what then ends up being a feeling. So like, yeah, maybe more of us
That's what
played
we're doing.
Yeah, but I don't think at the end of the day we can just say, oh, enough of us beat and like Chia that means it's going to be really high. Personally, for me, I mean, if we want to do it that way, we could, but I think it would change a lot of these if we just base it on how many people liked it from just the group versus like how passionate people are about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I don't know that you have to knock it. I don't know that you have to knock it that far down.
Sure.
But it's that one sticks out to me as one of like it's a mixed room with that one. Some people really like it. Some people have played it and didn't like it.
Who didn't like it?
I didn't like it.
Okay.
I mean, I enjoyed, like I said, I enjoyed the gameplay and kind of running around, but the mission structure and a lot of what the game was asking me to do, it was the reason I bounced off and I did not enjoy that aspect of it.
Well, it's sitting at 11 right now. And I want us all to feel that, just soaking through
Sit
it.
with that for a minute.
What a therapeutic comment.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what that means. I feel like that could
Jen.
be okay. Like, I don't know.
I like it there.
Ooh, love it. And
Will it not drop lower when we discuss some of like the armored cores? Or like
I think it might, but here's
lower
let me offer a sacrifice to the group. Let me put it on a pedestal, Alan Wake
is
2
it the
style.
making of Karateka?
Yeah, I think that's too
That's
high.
a great 20. Great 20.
Great 20.
Oh,
We accept your
whoa,
sacrifice.
No, we've
no.
already established Mario Wonder is 20.
I think that feels
Okay,
like
okay,
I feel
great
like-
19. You're right. I'm
okay,
happy to have
okay.
Mario
Look,
on the
we'll get
list.
to Mario in a bit. We'll leave no Mario unscathed. Making Karateka, we talked about it last week. Truly one of my favorite experiences of the year. I mean, it's my personal number 4. I'm fine with it being in the bottom 10. I just don't want it in that reject half of the bottom 10 is where I'm coming from.
No. Okay, you
No,
put it right
you
next
can't
to
say
City
that.
Skylines. Right next to
second
City
ago-
Skylines.
You said there was no shame in 14, and now
Yeah.
Remember, guys, no matter where these end up, these are 15 great games.
yeah, 100%.
And then 5 other ones.
These 5
Look, I'll-
trash games on the.
Yeah,
I
God
am
forbid your
totally
games sit with the
fine.
Leo and Sarah games and
Oh,
Kelsey JRPGs.
I shudder to think of it.
I think it's totally fine if this is fairly low on the 210s. It's also very high on my list. I'm with you, Ben. It's, I think, one of the coolest experiences of the year.
Yes.
But it doesn't, this is not going to be a thing that resonates with every person. This is for smart people who like learning, not for
Try it on for size.
Yeah,
Okay.
Exactly. It shouldn't even be on the
Okay.
list. It's on here, so
I mean-
we have a little bit of.
I'm
bonus
fine with it at
EQ
like
to the group.
17.
That's where it was last year. The same kind of game was in 17. So that
Okay.
seems like that.
I'm
could
moving
be
it to 17.
Was it?
It stings a
What was
little
the
bit.
Atari
Atari
game?
anniversary celebration.
Atari 50.
Yeah. That's just the
Janet, I'm
honorary
really
digital.
sorry if
equipment.
I'm
We'll just
talking
reserve
over
that
you.
game. We'll reserve that spot for you guys every year.
Thank you. It's all we ask.
I mean, there's that llama one coming out next year. or something.
Hell yeah, Llama Soft, Jeff Winter story. Okay, we'll
Should we
just
just keep 17 open next year?
Yeah,
nice.
leave it open for them.
yeah. It's kind of, it has moved on. Like, I feel like every year before it was like, well, Jackbox has to go on, and now it's just the new, the new digital Eclipse Gold Edition thing has to go on. Sorry, everybody. All right. In terms of top 10s, bottom 10s, Leo, what looks off to you? What would you shuffle?
I would love to hear why Hi-Fi Rush is as high as it is. I'm totally open to it. I just want to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, where are we as a group for Hi-Fi Rush? I know Kelsey is gaga over it. Is it your number 1, Kelsey?
No, but it's in my top 4.
Top 4. Okay.
And this is that's the only reason it's not higher is just because this was a really good RPG year too. But I feel like this is a game that it's interesting and fun and stylish and feels great, and it feels like I don't know, it's an experience that is very much for. It felt like it was made for me. I love rhythm games. I love action games. I love feeling like I'm good at action games when I'm not. And I feel like this is a very good, solid experience the entire way through. It is fun progression. It is fun even if you're not super good at rhythm games. They were so smart about how they implemented all of the different ways to help you out and be better at rhythm games. I think it's something everyone should experience, and I don't know, I'm once again a little shocked that there's some people that didn't like it on this panel because I loved it. I thought
Yeah.
it was like a nearly flawless experience.
No, I am with you, Kelsey. It's currently at my number 2. I really absolutely was gaga over Hi-Fi Rush. It completely blew me away. As somebody who doesn't really like stylish action games, it feels like so many smart ideas, and it feels like one of those games where I'm sure other studios have pitched a concept like this, even tried to develop games that are like this. Like, okay, it's a musical action game. All right, so everything you do is on the beat. But even just like that small detail of like, you're not attacking on the beat to feel like you fully have to be in that zone. Like your base level attack, you just hit attack and then it'll wait and then do it on the beat just to alleviate as much of that hassle as possible to make you feel just like you aren't being guilty for failing every step of the way for trying to keep up with the music and stuff like that. But it feels like a game that maybe a lot of people have pitched or concepted, and then like this team just brought up a solid 7 out of 10 idea into a level of polish that is downright mind-boggling. Like the overall production, it looks so damn good. Like I really think it's one of the best looking games ever made. Like I went back and played through the opening and the ending again this morning just to remind myself, like, do I really love this game as much as I think I do? And first of all, it's the tone. Like it's the silly, over the top tone. It feels like it has the seriousness of like a Mega Man Legends, which for me is the sweet spot of gaming tones. Like I just want goofy characters in a fun world. That's it, right? But going back and playing the beginning and the ending again, like I just forgot how good it looks. Like you would think that with that cel shaded art style, which plenty of games have done before, there's always a weird level of clipping or like, okay, here's like a 3 pixel line that'll be here for a couple frames, then it'll disappear. Like everything, if you look at any other cel shaded game, it just can't hold a candle to this. Like it looks so damn good every frame, every step of the way. And it's a level that I still cannot comprehend how they pulled it off when every other studio is just making it cel shaded, but you know, you can see they're just 3D polygonal models and it's just doing a weird approximation of it.
And the fact that the whole world is like bopping to the music in a noticeable way, like
right.
Not just things that are pure scenery, but you know, conveyor belt platforms are moving along with the rhythm, a different, you know, BPM per level, each level having its own vibe, but all like pulsating as you sit and just take it in. Really cool design.
There's animated cutscenes and then there's animated cutscenes. And this game has animated cutscenes with people who like clearly have learned the art of animation for decades and know like all the laws of animation and how to bend it to be spunky. It reminded me a little bit of like Into the Spider-Verse. Not that they look the same, but just that it's trying to do spunky things with its animation style. And then it pulls it off in a fun way to the point that I'm like, this should be on TV. This should get a spin-off TV series and I would watch that and not play it. I just want to watch this art style because it looks so nice.
Yeah, and just it feels breezy. The entire game feels light and silly when you know that, hey, game development's hard. There was nothing light and silly about the development of this game, you know, but the fact that they can just make it seem also loose, and the fact that I think the writing is great. I think all the characters really got me. I think that entire final sequence as you're running up with your friends to the big finale, like playing through that again, it's still like, God, that the music, the low roar music as it's building up, it absolutely works for me.
Peppermint's voice acting was like probably one of my favorites this year too. Even with like Alan Wake existing this year and stuff, like the voice actress for Peppermint really stuck out for me.
Yeah. And just like stupid gags. There's plenty of just stupid gags in here. Like when Chai is like carrying Corsica with her, like after she passed out, and he keeps banging her head into the door frames as he's trying to run through this facility. And then it's like a last door frame and it's like wide open. So he's like really carefully tiptoeing through the door frame so he doesn't bang her head just this one time. And then the automatic door just slams and slams right into her head. It's just like good physical gags that I really appreciate.
I think it's interesting, Ben, that you said, also, I apologize if there's background noise. There's a squadron of leaf blowers next to me.
Get in!
It's interesting that you said this was like something that a bunch of people would have pitched that then they managed to nail, because to me, this feels like the rhythm thing feels completely unexpected, but like revelatory for the stylish action genre, in that I said this in my own video, but like it makes the genre make sense in a way that it often does not if you are playing a Bayonetta or a Devil May Cry, in terms of like the fact that every attack that you want to counter from an enemy is also going to come on the beat. And like the way that you dodge, the dodge timing to chain dodges is also on the beat, is like such a genius idea to make that sort of like pretty fast paced, often can devolve into button mashing combat, like make sense in a really smart way. That being said, as probably the biggest stylish action game fan here, I don't think the combat itself holds up to the best of that genre, and I think like the enemy variety is kind of lacking and whatever. Like it's, I think it is a brilliant game, but it is not what I'm going to go to when I want to play a game of that kind.
Yeah.
For me, it's like my number 8. I do really like it, but it's not at the tippy top of my list.
Yeah, I get it. It's still a lot of, all right, we're going to make an invisible walls style scenario. Here's your little combat arena. Here's a little combat arena. And I totally hear you on that front.
And look, that's not the problem.
That's the stuff you like. I see.
But it is like if you play Bayonetta or you play even Lies of P, it's like you are going to see a new kind of enemy that is going to make you vary your tactics every 5 minutes. And that you're just kind of killing the same bots here, and like the extreme color coding of some enemies to be like, for the green guy, you need the green power or whatever, is neat to help you get to know it, but after a while feels a little tiresome because you're just kind of waiting on bars to recharge. So like there are problems that I have with the mechanics of the game, but I do think everything you said about the tone and the characters and whatever is totally on point.
I don't think the game is long enough to have ever felt that sort of like boredom in enemy design or character design or anything. Like I could totally, I respect that, but I also I don't think it's a long enough experience for that to have ever bothered me. I don't know. I just want to quickly touch on what Leo said earlier about how everything's kind of like moving to the environment and how cool that is.
Yeah.
I think I played through literally that entire game just doing absolutely everything on the beat. Like not because you need to, just because like that's what feels right. It feels right to literally time your jumps with like the beats of the song, and like it's a very joyful experience to do that, to play through a whole game like you're just vibing or dancing to a song. It's really cool.
And specifically like the Prodigy scenes and the, like I feel like there are a number of like this set piece specifically with this piece of music is going to be, like everyone is going to have a favorite one of those.
Yeah. And, Kelsey, you play a lot of stylish action games too. Like, I don't want it just to be like, well, the stylish action expert says it's okay.
Jacob is definitely more of an expert than I am in that. I'm sorry. I play them, but I'm not very good at them.
Sure.
I just like them.
Yeah, I remember last week, Janet, you mentioned like, look, if it wasn't freaking Shadow Dropped, you all wouldn't even care. And like, I do think that's an interesting, I do think we'd obviously care, but I was thinking more about that. And like, I do think it definitely had an impact, like going into this game completely blind and really being blown away by like this. I've never really cared about Tango in a big way. And this completely blew me away. And it's like, it's tough to separate that, but it's like, I don't think you need to. Like your experience playing the game is your experience playing the game.
I mean,
like,
it is also a great video game, to be clear.
Yeah.
It's not one that, like hearing other people that are really passionate about it, like it's clear that love is there, and I just don't have that for it, which is fair and fine. Like we're all gonna land differently, but for me, it's like, it kind of reminds me of that scene from, not quite as extreme, but Parks and Rec, where everyone loves little Sebastian, and then Ben White is like, I don't know, he's just a small horse. And everyone's like, what do you mean he's just a small horse? Like, didn't you feel the magic? And it's like, for me, I think it's a great video game. It's a fun time, but it didn't feel revolutionary or like a big standout for me in the year. But I also didn't finish it, so maybe I would have felt deeper about it if I had seen it through.
It ends well, yeah.
I'm not married to forcing my opinion on here just because I don't really have like a fully fleshed out one to begin with, but it just doesn't ride super high for me.
It's kind of throwbacky in a pure level design perspective to like Xbox 360 era of it being kind of linear but a little open, and there are side rooms that you're finding and things. Yeah. But that was like a pro for me. That felt right for what it is.
Yep.
I didn't realize that was also a pro for me, but I think that's why it resonated with me a lot too, Leo. I didn't think about that till you just said that, but it feels like playing a game when I was like 15, because that's probably what they were thinking of when they designed those levels.
That was a con for me. I enjoyed the combat. I liked the characters surprisingly much for Chai, because like you, I think you said it last time, Hanson. He is like that classic idiot character that is annoying in every other game, but there's something charming about him here. But it was everything in between that, exploring those levels, and I was I spent a lot of time hitting crates and just kind of at that point, like I do like that things are moving to the rhythm, and that is cool to see in the environments, but I don't like having to traverse and explore environments to the rhythm during those sections. And there wasn't a lot to them other than kind of just traversing, the kind of puzzly platforming that they wanted you to get through, but that wasn't.
I think the platforming is a little weak. The like physics of the jump and whatever are really well designed for combat, and then when you have to like jump on moving platforms, it falls apart a little.
Yeah, it's true.
Haley,
I don't disagree with that. That's the platforming is okay in that game.
But I'm also not a big rhythm game fan. So I totally understand that the two of you like that's not going to hold you back from absolutely loving it and getting through to the next, big combat and boss fights and the parts that are more enjoyable.
Oh, to get back to your comment, Jacob, from 10 minutes ago about like other games going for this type of thing. I was thinking about like Harmonix had their first person shooter called Chroma, where it's like you would shoot on the beat that didn't see the light of day. And then they released, there's a game called No Straight Roads from like 2020, I think, is like the lead designer of Final Fantasy 15. That if you look at it, it's wild because it feels like it's another take on this exact idea, and it just wasn't that fun to play.
We shouldn't let this discussion end without talking about the robot character that draws different expressions on his face for every conversation. That's great. It
is great. And to tie into other games on this list, there is a fun Xenogears reference in there too, which is just a level of like, that's the stuff that I love. And it's just because I love Xenogears, I guess. But just like the game can be that silly and specific and that loose that like, we're going to have a whole 3-minute chunk of the game be a wild homage to Xenogears, the 1998 RPG. But it's like, you know what? We're passionate about this. Put it in. Haley, you're informed on this topic. I mean, when you look at Hi-Fi Rush in that top 10, of course, obviously it belongs in the top 10, but I mean, where do you feel like is a good home for it?
The only thing I would do is move it below Sea of Stars, and then I'd personally be happy, but I also adore it, and it's just that I really like Sea of Stars, but I feel like the group likes Hi-Fi Rush more than Sea of Stars, so I could consent that where it is right now also kind of feels right too for this group.
Yeah. I am Resident Evil 4 remake as a group again, is it above Hi-Fi Rush for us? Like some of us really like Hi-Fi Rush. A lot of people are kind of like, I mean, whereas Resident Evil 4 remake again, we all say it's super fun to play and we love it.
I like it above Hi-Fi Rush.
Yeah.
I like Hi-Fi Rush more.
Okay.
I know I like it above Dave the Diver, but then I don't know how to answer your question after that.
Okay. Maybe we don't need to change it. Maybe it's okay. I was just testing the waters.
It's fun.
What else? What else should move from the top 10 to the bottom 10?
Could I poke Spider-Man a little bit?
Poke it.
You can poke.
That's interesting. What are your thoughts on Spider-Man, Haley?
I love Spider-Man. I had a great time with Spider-Man. I think it did new things for traversal that just made so much sense. The wingsuit, obviously, that's awesome. I could just do that. When my godfather came over and he was asking what's new with games, I showed him Spider-Man because that was the thing that was going to impress him the most, and that's what that game is. But it's also more Spider-Man. And, like, as much as I like that, I platinumed the first Spider-Man. I played Miles Morales too. It's more of it, and it's still really good. And I think just in a year with such stacked new experiences that feel like they're weirdly revolutionary in what they're trying to do, it just is hard to put it up against things like Hi-Fi Rush or Sea of Stars or Alan Wake 2 or Zelda, because it's just more of good thing. And I think any other year that might be enough to get it up higher than where it is, but it could even be a little bit lower. I don't think Chia should be above it personally, but I could see, like, I know Jacob has a lot of passion for Liza P. Like, I wouldn't even mind Jacob having a passionate speech about how that should be above Spider-Man 2, because that's how much I am kind of like, Spider-Man. Like, it was fun.
Yeah, I mean, I like it where it's currently sitting at number 9. And you say, it is more of the good thing. I do think it's just the amount of variety they pack into those missions, and the fact that you're split now between two Spider-Man with different skill trees and different abilities, and things are changing with just their basic mechanics throughout the entire game. I just feel like it's packing so much in, and it's one of those situations a little bit like Resident Evil 4 Remake for me, where I look at it and it's like, I think minute to minute, it's the most fun game to play this year.
I think that's true, but almost in kind of it's almost a detriment to it, where I feel like it's kind of a junk foody game, you know, that it is like every 30 seconds of that game is fun. Like there is not a single moment of that game that isn't fun. And it's so fun that you get to the end and you kind of haven't thought about the whole time how I don't think it's really done anything like that wild or interesting. You know, it's like I just kept waiting for it to like do something that would not be like the big AAA, quadruple A Sony video game choice. And it's like, it just kind of slides out of my mind. Like I beat that game and I don't think about it because I don't think it does that much.
I hear you, but it's like, what do you want from them to do the big twist from a AAA production? I think like some of those side missions where it's like, hey, let's just stop and think about death. The fact that there's like literally 2 missions where it's like time out, let's think about death for 4 minutes. Like, not that we should put it at the top of the list because of that, but it's pretty wild.
Watch a cutscene doesn't really.
One of them isn't a cutscene. One of them isn't a cutscene. Well, the other one isn't really a cutscene either. I mean, I think in terms of like not really doing that much that's wildly different. I mean, we've talked about it before with the max spoilers and everything, but like I love the amount of surreal missions that are in this game. It's like they took that feedback from the first game of like, hey, that weird scorpion venom scene where it's kind of the trippy sequence. What if that was 30% of the missions in this game are going to be inside somebody's mind or some surreal nightmare or some technological version of a surreal environment? I just feel like that is
what
them
if the
playing.
MJ missions didn't suck?
Right. I mean, I don't think they did.
They dared to dream.
No,
right.
They were better. They were better than the first game. That's
yeah.
They were exactly as good as Assassin's Creed Mirage.
Ooh,
It was the same
man.
game.
Oh crap! We forgot to bring it up on the
I don't
listing.
even know how to like. That's one to sit with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You'll be thinking about that more in Spider-Man 2.
I don't like. I think the first half of the story I enjoyed more than any of the previous Spider-Man stories. The second half I wasn't as crazy about, but as a whole, I was surprisingly engaged. Like, call me a simpleton, please. But at the same time, I think I was more engaged with the story in Spider-Man 2 than any other game story this year. I'm like, I want to see where this thing frickin' goes. And maybe, again, I'm just too obsessed with superheroes. I don't think I am. I think I'm critical enough, but still this one got me. And I really wanted to see where the story was going, what was happening with these characters.
Yeah, the story moments have really good gameplay, and it's interesting. You know, back in the day, you'd think a Sony prestige game would have like 2 to 3 giant action set pieces that are really memorable, and this felt like every chapter it was just set up and cool down from a giant set piece.
Yeah,
that was like had unique gameplay in it, and that was really cool. I think it's always a tough conversation to have because it is a known good thing that we expect to be good and succeeds at being good, but it just seems to not really emotionally resonate in a way that some of these games do that get us really excited to pump them up on the list.
Yeah,
that's what I think. I think it's good, and I am more excited when someone's a big nerd for gets higher than something that we all were like, that was fun. But like at Ben, it sounds like you are passionate about it though.
I do. I mean, it is my personal number 3 for whatever that means. So file that away, number keepers. But Janet, I mean, where do you think about Spider-Man? I know you're a fan.
Yeah, I love this game. It's my personal number 5, right behind Dead Space Remake RIP from last episode. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with a lot of it that's been tossed out, which I feel like it's such a cop-out response. But this is a phenomenal game and an incredibly boring pick for any list. I think it's a fantastic game. I think it's one of the best games I've played this year, and I acknowledge that is a little bit of a boring thing to say, but it's just true. Again, moment to moment, the feeling, the traversal. The side quests have, I think, a lot of heart to them. But yeah, it's, again, unless it really wows. And I think that's kind of one of the running themes with a lot of Insomniac's titles. It's like, it's really like well made. But again, I think a lot of issues that fall with this, you know, quote unquote Sony prestige title is they're so polished, they lack dimension. It's almost better if your game was a little worse because then it might be a little bit more interesting. We could kind of really debate something. I think the closest I've seen to us really unpacking like a mechanical sequence was that fight that we talked about last episode, which I guess I won't get into because of spoilers, but it's like, at least, okay, cool, that's a friction point. Like, some of us hated it, some of us loved it, and we had something to really unpack, but I think it is so digestible that it is a little bit less interesting. But that being said, it's still my number 5. I still think it's a fantastic game, and I think it's better than a lot of games on this list in a sense, but at the same time, it's like, I do kind of like how we lean on intrigue and passion a bit more. I do think, though, if we're going to say it's more of the same thing is good, that's also RE4 Remake, and I get that RE4 Remake is a better game, like game to game, than Spider-Man 2, but I think they both are prisoners of, okay, yeah, it's a great thing that we thought would be great. And again, I do think RE4 is probably more interesting, even though I didn't finish it, but they're both kind of in there. So like, I know Dave the Diver just kind of awkwardly sitting in the middle. It's like, should that be higher because it's newer and more of a surprise? Should they both be dropped? You know, it's like, again, I think Spider-Man's a way better game than Chia, but should Chia be higher because there's more intrigue for it? Like, I'm not really sure how we as a group want to go about that. Because again, also, what's the best game? That's also very personal on what you think is better than another game, you know?
This is a totally unfair thing to level against Spider-Man 2, and I acknowledge that. But I do think, like, in 10 years, when not acknowledging any news stories, there might be another Spider-Man game. Like, I just don't think anyone's going to be, like talk about Spider-Man 2 separate from the Marvel Spider-Man franchise. Yeah. You know, like, it does just kind of seem like another one, you know, when we'll talk about, like, oh yeah, I love those Spider-Man games, but I don't think people are going to be like, Spider-Man 2, that's the one, because, like, the things that it does well, it just seems like it does a little better than Spider-Man 1 and Miles Morales. Yeah. And like we talked about in our Max spoilers, there are story moments from both those first games that stick with me way, way more. And, like, you know, my favorite story moments from Spider-Man 1 were not surpassed by 2. And so it just makes it feel a little like another one versus, like, the next great entry. Yeah, I mean, there is obviously wild originality on this list above it, which is why I feel like sitting at number 9 feels about right to me. I'm not arguing it should be higher. I don't want to punish a game for, like, a game that we all agree is super fun to play almost all the time. Like, that seems wild.
I rushed through the back half of that game over the past couple days, and my biggest knock against it when we started poking is the story, which did not resonate. And part of that is because I played the first half, which actually was good and had all of the Miles Morales parts to it that I actually enjoyed. And then the second half was a lot of Peter being a douchebag. But I enjoyed the gameplay the entire time. And when I look at the rest of the list, there's nothing there that I'm wanting to bump up above it.
That's the way I feel too.
Is kind of
interesting.
Is kind of the place where I'm at now. Like, it's kind of sunk to the point where I don't know what the argument, or, you know, which game we're even arguing for to move above it. Yeah, but it wouldn't be Chia for me at this point, and I don't.
Yeah, for audio listeners,
it's the birds.
It was nice. But below Marvel Spider-Man 2, it's Chia, Lies of P, Chance of Sonar, Octopath Traveler 2, City Skylines 2, Super Mario Brothers Wonder, Venba, The Making of Karateka, Shadow Gambit, The Curse Crew. Kelsey, you didn't jump on that. You didn't correct. Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Future Redeemed. Are these the two pockets?
I think we should.
I want to poke at Venba real quick, just because every single person on, like, it's a short experience, and I know that there's probably some ding against that compared to a giant game like Spider-Man 2, but I mean, just pure passion wise, and, you know, there's no way to get super scientific about this, but, like, literally everyone here loved that game.
Is that right?
I think that counts for something, right?
I felt like the last conversation we had about it, people were like, do we need it on the 210s? And kind of debated that, and the takeaway was, yes, it should be on the 210s, but
to be fair, I think that was me trying to. I really love Venba, but I think that was me trying to sacrifice one for the team a little bit. That said, I think Venba is a great lower 210s option.
So we could have had Texas Chainsaw in here, and you're just like, yeah, Venba.
It didn't happen. I was trying to throw it out there. No, I think Venba's awesome for the bottom 10. I mean, does anybody feel like it should go up?
Well, okay, if not that, I guess I'm just trying to put something above Spider-Man, just given just given everyone's temperature on it, and not like I have no dog in this fight. But it feels like there's a lot more passion for a lot of the games in 11 through 20 than there is for Spider-Man. Just if we're trying to move it off of that 9 spot.
I mean, I didn't say much, but I like Spider-Man on the top 10. I mean, that's a.
It would still be on the top 10 if something went above it. To be
That's
clear,
true.
Currently,
Yeah.
I think that Chia is a game that some of us really like, and some of us have like very understandable kind of quibbles with, and it does feel reasonable to put Venba above that, which is a game that I don't think any of us really have like issues with, and we all really, really liked.
Yeah.
I like that. And I like Chia a lot. I thought it was a really good game, but I think Venba's on my top 10. For indie console, it was like my number 1 indie game of the year.
Yeah.
It's because I didn't play that many indie games because we started the show like at the end of the year, and I was like, oh my god, I'm not as good as everyone else on the cast. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really special. But I don't know.
I just keep coming back to like
on the list.
I keep coming back to like core gameplay stuff, which is 1,000 different angles you can take for these debates. I get it. But thinking about playing the core gameplay of Chia, most of the time I was freaking delighted in rolling down a hill as a rock and flying around and traversing a little world in a way that I've never really traversed a world in a game before. And then the core gameplay of Venba is getting frustrated with the puzzles, but enjoying everything surrounding that, you know? So I'm hesitant to put it above Chia personally, but I'm curious where everybody else is
at the very least, it seems like it could come up above the other ones.
Sure.
It's with.
Yeah, you could put it at 11.
Yeah.
You betcha. Hey, you betcha. Okay.
I also am just like, I want to hear more from, I mean, Sarah, is City Skylines 2 your number 2 game of the year? And Leo Shadow Gambit is your number 2 of the year? Like those feel, I mean, I
City
also
Skylines
have my
2
number
actually
1
is
and
my
2.
number 2 game of the year. Thanks for asking, Kelsey.
I have some stuff that's high up that's a little low too, because it's also like a niche thing that only I'm into. But I don't know. I feel like there's opportunity for people to get excited about that and move it higher than it is. Like some of that should be in the top 10, I feel like.
I'd love to hear more about City Skylines too.
Okay, City Skylines 2.
Let's go with Sarah for this one.
Incredible
many
city
names for the
builder. They added a lot of stuff from the base game, and I'm just really excited. They added a bunch of like economic resources, so when you get a new place, you'll have resources that you know that you're like, okay, well, you can actually make your town a more green town versus just saying like, we're a green town. You know, you can focus on farming and agriculture and solar. I really liked the follow system where you can actually like add the people in your city to like your own personal Twitter feed, and you can watch them like age up and kind of move around the city, and you can see them like working at actual buildings. You can see them like getting like becoming more economically stable if you're like making a more successful city. I like to like ride around my own public transportation systems, and I like to follow people and see the routes they take. So yeah, you can follow somebody and you can watch them get on a bus to a train, and you're like, wow, isn't public transportation great? But I can just play this game for hours. Like this is the game that I sit and all of a sudden it's 5 a.m. and I'm just like, just one more. I just need one more road. And I can fix this whole traffic thing. Just one more road and I've solved the problem. But yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited to see where City Skylines 2 goes with all the DLC City Skylines has. Like it's truly going to be like one of those like forever played games.
The follow thing sounds really cool. I'm really intrigued by that.
Yeah, having a game that is that big, but then having almost a Sims-like quality of like you will care about every individual if you want to. Like that's such an awesome bit of granularity.
Does it zoom in like perspective-wise small, or are you just like watching from above them?
No, you go down and you like it's like you're behind them. Like you go to like a street level, so you can like see all the stuff around them. You can see, like, you can watch them, like, they're like, it'll say where they're going. They're like, they're going shopping. And then they'll just like pop into the building and pop out. And they're like, they're going home. And you're like, awesome. Look at this wonderful city I've made for you to thrive in.
Do you think it's egregious that it's not in the top 10, or where are you at for its overall placement here?
I mean, I'm the only one that really likes City Skylines, and it seems like there's a lot more people who are behind the games on the top 10. So I'm fine currently where it is. I'm not going to fight for it because it just seems like there's more like multiple people behind the games above it. So I'm happy where it is.
It's kind of the top of the solo defenders, right? Everything above that.
I think
Chance
so.
of Sonar, we've got multiple people who like that.
Yeah. Yeah, Leo, how are you feeling about Shadow Gambit? Bottom 10.
I think it's great in the bottom half of the second 10. I adore that game, and the one thing I haven't, given it credit for in these talks is how great the character design and story is. Every character I want to watch a movie about. They're just like so acutely designed, and they all do get their little backstory moments, all very memorable and unique in ways that come through in their gameplay. Like this guy who jumps on this, spirit anchor and dives under the ground and can reappear at anywhere else within the area at the same level. And you can pull bodies in under the ground. I don't know. It's interesting gameplay per character for a stealth thing. Options I've never had in stealth games before.
Yeah.
And that goes a long way for me. And the quick saving thing is so clever. Having it be part of the story. There's a character that is saving for you when you press the quick save button and reminds you to quick save and says maybe you should load the previous quick save, in game terms. And it factors into the story eventually, which is really cool how cohesive that all is.
Yeah.
I think it's a special thing, but still haven't beaten it, so don't feel, like it's like I'm dying if it's not super high.
Yeah. I know we've talked about it before, but it's an easy one to forget. But yeah, Shadow Gambit, it's a game that was described as tactical stealth, and that turned me off. And then playing it, it's like, at least in the early stages, like this feels more like isometric Dishonored, and it feels freaking sweet. Leo, you asked if I played more of it last week, and I remember like, oh crap, I kind of did. Where my brother-in-law was staying with us, and he's one of those guys who's like playing Baldur's Gate 3 on the hardest difficulty. What is that called again, Sarah?
Honor mode.
Yeah, he's like easy baby game, like that type of thing. And so I'm like, hey, I think you might like this. And so I tossed him Shadow Gambit on the Steam Deck, and he was playing it for hours. Like, this freaking rules. So I definitely want more people to check it out. So obviously a sad situation where the studio exploded right after they shipped an awesome game, but
yeah,
Shadow
feels really
Again?
snappy.
Yeah.
Another studio down for a game that just came out? That sucks.
There's a Leo touch.
My power's growing.
No,
Oh my
Leo.
gosh.
For the audio listeners, somebody that was not me made a bold move, and I think it's the correct one. Jeffem, what'd you do? What did you do?
I moved Super Mario to the bottom because we only debated for like 45 minutes last episode if that one was going to get cut. So it only makes sense down there.
I think that makes sense.
And that moved everything else. That moved Shadow Gambit up a spot. So there you go.
Kelsey, you've been very generous on calling out other people. How are you feeling about the bottom 10 right now? So just for everybody's reminder for everybody, it's Venba, Lies of P, Chance of Sonar, Octopath Traveler 2, City Skylines 2, Making of Karateka, Shadow Gambit, The Cursed Crew, Armored Core 6, Xenoblade, Chronicles 3, Future Redeemed, and Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Like, I guess specifically Octopath and Xenoblade. How are you feeling about those in the bottom 10?
Yeah, I mean, we have this situation where, like, I'm going to be the only defender of these games, and I love them. They are both really, really incredible RPGs. And I was thinking about it last night, and I realized that specifically my favorite, like, narrative thing is setting up a ton of pieces that you think there's no way these things can all be related, and then somehow in the end all of the pieces come together in a really satisfying way. And that's both of these games.
Interesting.
Both the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed. That one's over an extremely long scale of like, a decade and 300 hours. And then Octopath Traveler 2, it's just nails it in one. I mean, it's a pretty long game. It's like 90 hours to beat. But like, both of those do that specific thing super, super well. They are incredible games if you like JRPGs, but it's just me, Like, I don't know how much more I can argue for them. Their positioning, I'd probably put them both closer together and Xenoblade on top of Octopath Traveler 2, but like, that's nitty gritty. They're both going to probably end up in the bottom half, and that's okay.
And Octopath, we haven't really talked about it too much yet overall, but like the story is better than Octopath Traveler 1. I know that was a big ding for everybody with that one.
By far. And I'll preface that by saying I never actually finished Octopath 1 because I think like 40 hours in, I just still wasn't really feeling it and still wasn't really drawn in. And it was fine, but I think that I just wish Octopath Traveler 1 didn't come out because Octopath Traveler 2 just nails all of the things that the first one did pretty well, and it makes 2 feel not as special because of it. Because
That's
like, oh, we
interesting.
have technically already seen this kind of thing before, but I don't feel like the first one did it in a way. I guess I should explain. Octopath is referring to there being 8 different playable characters whose stories all eventually intertwine, and they seem unrelated, and you meet up with the other characters at some point, and their stories do start to like ravel together, and I don't think that's a word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They braid together and become part of the same story. Octopath 2, I feel like it at least does something in the beginning where it sort of sets up like the obvious way in which all of the characters are going to be related. Like you hear a story towards the beginning of the game that's basically like, there were 8 people a long time ago who worked together to seal away this big evil, and you're like, I bet the 8 of us are going to be the new version of those 8 people. But it ends up being a whole lot more interesting than that, and just all these very unrelated seeming things that happen throughout the game just sort of come together really beautifully in the end, and like, oh, that was related to this whole plot this whole time. Like, how I would have never seen that coming. And I thought that it just did a really good job with that. Also, some of the best music in a JRPG in a really long time. Like, really, really well done battle music. I have boss music from that game stuck in my head pretty often. Like, it's very, very good. So super awesome experience. I think it's in the same way that like remakes are dinged. I think it's dinged a little bit by Octopath Traveler 1 existing, because it's just kind of a worse version of this game. But yeah, I mean, it's in my top 4 for sure. It's really, really good.
Great case. Thank you. That was exactly what I was looking for Octopath. How are we feeling about locking in the bubbles of the 10s? Does anything else need to slide up or down the elevator here, or is everybody in their arena?
Can I get, and this is, I truly just want a temperature reading.
Yeah.
How do people other than me feel about Lies of P? Because it is my number 3.
It is
I enjoyed it.
Is my number 6.
Okay. Is that your temperature, Jacob? Do you feel like you get it?
Jeff, did you try it?
I did. I didn't particularly love it.
That's temperature.
I guess it is. I wasn't.
What was the temperature?
Yeah.
I don't know if this
I
helps,
guess,
but my
yes.
partner said, make sure Jacob and Janet fight for Lies of P, please. He really wants to see it.
It's the game everyone wants to love, but most of those people aren't on the call, so what do you really do?
Exactly.
You know?
It's like, I'm wondering if that could be the number 10.
That's what I'm kind of thinking too. I kind of was thinking that, but it's not my fight to make, so I was being quiet, but I'm glad that it's happening.
I feel bad because I feel like it just seems like I hate Chia. I like that game. I really enjoyed it. I want to go back. But yeah, I think, I don't know. It's funny. And then I'm in a weird spot, like kind of opposite of you, Jacob, where I don't have such a storied history with these types of games. So in a way, I'm like, does me liking it mean the game is actually bad?
Oh, this is good. You hated Elden Ring. Like, I love that you like this game.
Yeah,
the fact that you like it, Janet, makes me want to play it.
This is my Goobies moment. You know, it's like there's Vampire Survivors, and I'm like, I'm playing this weirdo thing over here that's kind of a clone, but is doing its own thing in a way that makes it distinctive. But yeah, Lies of P, it's the first game of this ilk that I feel like I don't have to message everyone in my life to explain it to me. I asked for one piece of advice from like one of my peers who was reviewing it on like, hey, how should I like spec my build for like the really basic abilities? And that's it. Everything else has been really chill. I think I kind of talked about this last episode, I think, but the way they onboard you, it's the first time I really felt onboarded in a game like this. I think a lot of times it's very much a lore and mechanics dump. I think they add just enough, I don't want to say like ease to it, but to a degree, right? Every time even updates drop for this game, they're like, oh, we nerfed this enemy. I was like, yeah, keep going. The longer I take to beat it, the easier it'll be. But it's just, I think the combat is really fun and simple. I think the strategies you can employ invite you to explore them, both in the weapon construction that you can do, and also just the way that you can sort of take those weapons and tool sets and experiment on different enemy types with it. Like when I figured out by myself how to kill the optional like hard enemy in front of the elevator, and I'm like, oh, if you grapple them, you can have just enough time to walk around and do like a super, like, it's kind of like a strike attack that brings down a lot of HP. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. And I figured this out myself and I did it and I was able to do it. And I feel like I get that a lot of people have that experience in, you know, other Souls games or other Souls likes and maybe feel like they had that experience in a better way. But for me, this is one of the few games where I felt like I had that. I felt like it's fun. I think the checkpointing is very generous. I think it removes just enough friction where it's like, I think so many of us who haven't gotten into Souls games are like, I want to do it, but the game doesn't let me. And I think this is the first game that it hasn't taken me out yet. And I haven't beaten it yet, largely in part because this game stresses me the hell out to play. Like, I'm like, all right, time to get the heart rate up. Like, I'm like, do I want to go back and just start profusely sweating on my sofa for like 45 minutes while I play this? But the answer is kind of yes. Like, I love this game. I think it's fantastic. And that's not even getting into the aesthetics of it. We got our freaking butterflies flying around, and I'm wearing a donkey head playing the piano. Like, this is a really good video game. And I would love to see it in the top 10, but at the same time, it's also not that deep. But I mean, I like it more than Chia, which again, I feel like Chia's just getting...
If you and Jacob both like it more than Chia, I mean, I can live with that.
Janet, I'm curious how you sat down and started this game, because I also like have barely dabbled in From Software games, but hearing how much you like it makes me want to try. Like, what made you go, okay, I'll try?
I kind of try almost everything. Like if it's not insanely out of my wheelhouse, there are some things that like I won't play at all because I'm like, you know, I'm not going to be able to wrap my head around this. Like fighting games, like I never play like when Street Fighter comes out. I'm like, that's people's thing. But also just a lot of people compare this game to, I think Sekiro is the comparison point.
Bloodborne, right?
Bloodborne.
But also the combat is very much Sekiro and Bloodborne.
Really?
Like, yeah.
Oh.
I get, and this is probably just because I don't have the background of Sekiro and Bloodborne, but I got Demon Souls vibes from this in terms of it being okay to like, which they're all kind of intertwined, but just the speed of it feels very approachable. I feel like the grind is very easy to do because of the checkpointing system, where this game's version of Souls, like it's easy for me to grind for that because I can constantly like re-checkpoint. And I get for some players that might be boring, but for me, I've always had to grind anyway. So like, I think all of that, and then just the onboarding, I think the ease at which you can bring, I forget their term for it, but like your NPC helper person can come in really easily. You get that item a lot in the game, so it's not like as stressful to invoke as it is in other titles. And yeah, I just think it is the most approachable and understandable version of this.
Yeah.
You know, so I kind of went into this like, let me guess, like another one that, you know, I might kind of bounce off of. But I think just also the fact that it doesn't start out too difficult and kind of scales nicely, where now I'm in too deep. But now that I'm in deeper, I'm capable enough to do the things that it's asking me to do is really the appeal point for me, and why I've stuck with it versus like, you know, I've tried like Wolong and other titles, and I'm like, I just usually don't end up seeing those through. But this one I'm really intrigued by.
Yeah.
That makes me want to try it.
Yeah, you should.
That's very notable that it's the one that stands out amongst those.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We moved it up. It's at the 10 spot, bumped Chia down to the bottom 10. That feels right to folks?
I like that better.
Okay. Yeah, love it. Love it.
I only don't like Chia and Venba next to each other just because they sound similar and aren't super dissimilar levels of cuteness.
Yeah, we can shuffle those. But by and large, for the buckets of the top 10, bottom 10, are we feeling good?
This feels good.
I feel great.
Love it.
I like those buckets.
Ooh,
good buckets.
Great buckets. Hey, Kyle, do you know how this whole thing operates?
Is it bio breaks again?
No, this time actually it's Patreon. Patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. Find the tier that's right for you. And again, if you're a supporter, any tier, not only can you submit questions on any regular episode of the MinnMax Show podcast and win a great prize from I Am 8-Bit, but also you can vote for your top games of the year, and we'll come up with the great big hive mind for what the community thinks should actually be the 210. They can say, actually, you're wrong, and these are the reasons why you're wrong, and we appreciate that. But only if it's coming through that forum. But thank you to some of MinnMax's biggest supporters. I'm talking about HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. And that's why, of course, it's America's #1 meal kit. Leo, you know when it's time to cook, and you're like, and you look at your partner and you say, "Darling, it's cooking time." What's the biggest
thrice a day, my friend?
What's the biggest pain in the ass? What's the part that you dread the most after you say that sentence?
The dishes.
The dishes. Right. Well, with HelloFresh, you can eat right out of you can eat out of the bag. If you don't cook the ingredients, you can just treat it like a little horse trough and just shove your head in the bag.
Bag open and lay it flat and eat from the bag.
Yeah, because hey, whether your resolution this year is to save money, eat better, or stress less, HelloFresh is here to help you do all three. You can say hello to your most delicious year yet. Oh, that sounds tempting. With fresh ingredients and chef-craft recipes at a price you'll like, delivered right to your door. So,
here.
Haley, you can have one. If you go to hellofresh.com/MinnMaxFree and use code MinnMaxFree for free breakfast for life. 1 breakfast item per box while subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life at hellofresh.com/MinnMaxFree with the code MinnMaxFree.
Is there a little asterisk by that, I wonder, that says something legalese?
I don't see it. But it's as long as you have the subscription.
Actually give you breakfast for life.
But as long as the subscription is active.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Legally, they know what they're doing, Haley. Just like Notion, everybody. Notion. All right, you got
Wait, I actually love Notion.
Are you kidding me, Sarah? Why?
Is it like the web browser?
Like the project workspace thing?
Yes.
Ooh, hey, why? Please. Hang on, should we put it on the top 10?
I actually would. I use it a lot. I use it for literally everything in my life. You can like make like to-do lists, you can like put all your information in it. I like it because you can like make like drop-down menus of things and like different pages, and it's all organized on the left side. I have like a little work section, and then I have like just general plan section. You could put your calendar in there and like link it to other places. I think it's one of the best like project management apps that I've used. I love this thing. You can put emojis in it. You could put cool little like GIFs as like headers. So, like you open your calendar and there's like a cool GIF there.
I love it.
The aesthetics are very high on
Yeah,
Notion,
the customization of this is like just off the chart.
There we go. That's Notion, everybody. When your project gets more complex, finding what you're looking for across your entire workspace, it gets harder. That's where Notion Q&A comes in. It answers any questions you have, making use of your entire database of knowledge to help make sure the answers are actually helpful. And with Notion AI, Notion AI can now give you instant answers to your questions using information from across your wiki, projects, docs, and meeting notes. Whatever question you have, Leo, as long as it's in your docs somewhere, Notion AI will find it for you. You can also ask Q&A questions from anywhere in Notion, so you can find exactly what you need without leaving the doc you're in right now and stay focused on what's important. You can try Notion.
All questions are kind of Q&A questions.
I guess that's true. Try Notion AI for free when you go to notion.com/MinnMax. That's all lowercase letters, notion.com/MinnMax to try the powerful, easy to use Notion AI today. When you use the MinnMax link, you're supporting the show directly, so notion.com/MinnMax to keep them around. Also, shout out to the Juggernaut, the 20,000 pound elephant in the room. I'm talking about I Am 8-Bit. Elephant. I'm 8-Bit here, everybody. They want you to pre-order the Persona 3 portable vinyl soundtrack and the Persona 4 golden vinyl soundtrack. It's available for pre-order in their store with beautiful album art by Drew Wise. But otherwise, of course, it's the Atlas sound team that put these things together. As with all of these vinyls at I Am 8-Bit's wonderful online store, they look incredible. The Persona 3 portable soundtrack in particular is just a cool pink vinyl with a gun on the front. It looks awesome. So you can check it out along with everything else in iam8bit's wonderful online store. If you go to iam8bit's wonderful online store, we have links below for all these things. You can use the promo code MORESLEIGHBELLS to get 10% off of everything under $100. So shout out to iam8bit for supporting us moving into 2024. Very exciting. Thank you, iam8bit.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Now we just got to order these suckers. Frame reference again. 2 10s up top. We got Hitman Freelancer, Baldur's Gate 3, Alan Wake 2, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Sea of Stars, Hi-Fi Rush, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Dave the Diver, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Lies of P. Then bottom 2 10s, number 11 going down, Chia, Venba, Chance of Sonara, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed, Octopath Traveler 2, City Skylines 2, The Making of Karateka, Shadow Gambit, The Cursed Crew, Armored Core 6, Super Mario Brothers Wonder. All right, bottom 10. The No Man's Land, they call it.
Stinky bottom bucket.
Just the slander of what the bottom 10 represents. It's like we all knew it, but did we have to say the quiet part out loud?
You're right.
The crusty
Yeah.
bubble.
Yeah, this is the bottom gross crust.
There was also 100 other games that like didn't make it on here.
I know.
Thinking about right now too.
Let's see what seems out of line. I think is Chance of Sonara a bit high?
What? Oh, I thought it could go higher.
Oh, really?
To be honest.
I think of like where Chance of Sonara is at, and I'm thinking of like the passion projects of like, you know, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed, which Kelsey is gaga over, or the other.
Yeah, but
you know,
multiple people like Chance of Sonar, and I thought there was a really good discussion about it.
Yeah, they said they want a Chance of Sonar to teach them a real language, which is like pretty passionate.
That is true.
What if I had here's a little anecdote for Chance of Sonar, because those always hit better than just like word vomit or whatever. I like found this guy and he was like blah blah blah. I was like, I have no idea what he's saying. He said me something something. I was like, gosh, I wish I knew what this man said. And then I went off and I did a bunch of other stuff and I learned the language, and it was like, yeah, you learned this type of people's language. I was like, yippee, I'm gonna go see what that guy said. And so it was me love music. And then the game like conjugates things and like actually makes it into a nice flowing sentence for you. So it was, I love music. And then I noticed he was like dancing next to a guy with a guitar. So I was like, of course he loves music. How did I not notice this? And it's just like the weirdly most satisfying thing to be like, I connected with this human being. I know he likes music. I was like, yay. And before he was just like, ba ba ba, and I was like, okay, bye. And then all of a sudden it was a person when I came back, because I understood him. Like it was just such a nice moment, and it's that game is just that, but all the time, and it's just a rewarding, nice thing.
Too, everywhere there's like so many smart design decisions that they made. I think this game easily could have been kind of hell on earth. Like I think it's still a really cool idea, but I think with a few wrong moves, it would just be kind of annoying to play in terms of what you have to do. But they really remove and streamline all of the experiences, like to what Haley was saying, where it's so cool that they don't just take like the raw translation, and they also like put in your guesses too. Like if I guessed, you know, loves food instead of music, it would say like, I love food, or I like he loves / whatever. Food. Yeah, and then it's like, and it also, which also leads to really like funny moments, like because you're trying to guess what the language is too. So I talked to somebody and they were like, I'm here to buy a woman. I'm like, that's not right. This is that must be a different kind of game if this is in here. And then I'm like, okay, well, obviously this can't be what he's saying. So you kind of have these like constant checks. And I think the game really does a cool job playing with the ways that you engage with the language, because there's also like things that surprised me. Like there'd be a moment where you're kind of like undercover, and they're like, oh, pick up this, you know, give me an apple. There's like a bunch of baskets of fruit. And I'm like, man, I'm glad I know that he's saying apple, because if not, like I'd get found out during this time. So I think they also really experiment with how they language check you. But yeah, my passion for Chance of Sonar is super high. But I think there's also a lot of interesting passions in this bottom 10 chunk. Like I could see, well, I don't want to say what I could see moving up, but I just feel like I don't know, there's other titles, right?
Yeah.
That like, maybe like
I mean,
Xenoblade 3's 300 hours is very intriguing as well. So those kind of stick out to me.
Which hour is your favorite?
But it's already at 14.
This is good at 14. I'm wondering, Venba,
Let's just cement what we have and walk away.
is Chance of Sonar, does that feel right below Venba for people that have played both?
I kind of like it more than Venba, because it's giving me this feeling that I haven't really felt while playing a game in a while. I don't even know if it's just it's so rewarding to get things right in this game because it's just like you're solving puzzles, yeah, but it's more like this weird subhuman experience of feeling seen and like understanding something outside of yourself. Like it truly feels like when you enter a new area and you're learning a new language, everything's scary and you're like, oh, like that feeling of someone yelling at you in a language you don't know and you're like, what do you want from me? I just want, what do you want? I'll help you, like whatever. And then once you like are around the people, you talk to someone, you realize, oh, like that kind of makes sense. And another thing that I really liked about this game is it also is clear that people who like came up with the fake language are like linguists, or they have like a history with like being like learning about that, because the iconography for the words is really interesting. Like it'll make sense with how they've drawn the symbols. It's not just random symbols like journey or something that's just like 4 dots, whatever. It'll be like you learn like what death is. And then graveyard is like death inside of a box. And I'm like, and I didn't learn graveyard from like going to a graveyard. I learned it because I looked at it and I was like, death inside something. And I was like, coffin. So at first I put coffin. And then when I was in a graveyard, the sign over top was death in the box. I was like, oh, it means graveyard. And like there's just like really moments like that too. And so like you don't necessarily have to talk to everybody sometimes to understand a word. It can just be looking at how their language is typefaced and understanding the rules. Like plurals are 2 in a row instead of like, so if you say people, it's just like people, or like person, something. It's like, that means people are doing blah, blah, blah. Like there's a lot of really interesting stuff like that I think only comes from people on the team who are making this game having a background in the science of understanding languages and stuff, which I thought was really cool.
Fine, I put it on my wish list.
Nice.
You got
Yay.
me.
I mean,
sometimes you have to walk back and forth for a long time, and that is my only ding against
true.
the game.
Okay.
I do think they have a fast travel they build in, but I will say there's times where I'm like, can they narratively bake in me being able to magically teleport? Because like it's a little long. But yeah, I mean, I echo everything you say, Haley. I think it is such, maybe it's like the education background in me, but it is such a fun look at how you learn about something.
Like Karateka.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think they both like Kelsey's, what was the comment that you made? Like, this is a smart game for smarties. I don't know if I guess Chance Sonar is kind of a smart game for smarties, but I can still enjoy it.
Are we moving Venba below Chance of Sonar? I mean, that feels right if people have played both. I mean, I love Venba, but...
I love Venba, but Chance of Sonar really truly gave me a unique feeling that I feel like I appreciate, and that I would want to bump it up a little bit for that.
Yeah.
That's fine. As someone who hasn't played it but has played Venba, seems fine. I love how mechanically ambitious y'all are making it sound.
Yeah. I hate to do this, but emergency timeout. We have no, we're all good. Don't worry. But we have an update from Kyle Bosman, a follow-up email.
Scared me.
Where he says, or my sincerer response, I just realized this one was missing too. If you think this one is better, go with this if it's not already too late. So don't read the Final Fantasy 16 one.
Immortals of Avium, finally.
He says, Street Fighter 6, says Kyle Bosman. One of the best fighting games of all time came out this year. The hands-down, best-in-class roster of characters, returning and original, are distinguished in both visual design and distinct functionality. They've got mechanics and simplified controls to make bad players like me feel like I'm doing something. There's that absolutely stupid but still worth it globe-trotting campaign mode. But I think what really makes it stand out to me from a design standpoint is that it's a genuine thrill to spectate. I mean, it's not City Skylines 2, but probably worth the attention of fans of the genre. Taking shots one more time.
If it's not City Skylines 2, what am I even doing?
Right. Okay, cool. Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it. Okay. What else looks egregious in that bottom list, everybody?
I think it's great.
I mean, Jacob, is Armored Core 6 a bit low?
Is it weird that Karateka is splitting the number 1 passion projects for like half people, and then the other number 1 or number 2 passion projects are below it?
I think that's totally fair. I'm okay with it being at 19, honestly, just given the passion of everybody else's picks above that for I mean, it's below City Skyline 2, but above Shadow Gambit and Armored Core 6.
I mean, Leo was ready to let...
does feel random.
Yeah, I hear you. But Leo's ready to let Shadow Gambit die a horrible death last week until we
Was he?
Yeah, he was.
And I think
Just
we'll
because
all
Leo is
remember
a nice
that
guy.
graciousness later.
No one is going to forget a single moment here.
I mean, Sarah was willing to let City Skylines die too,
Right.
just because people are nice. I don't know that changes this weird dynamic of some of them are.
So you want all of the solo passion projects bundled together. I think that's weirder, isn't it?
I just don't know why Karateka is more higher than some passions versus other passions. Singular passions is where it feels weird
Sure.
to me.
I mean, is a way of going about this. I mean, Armored Core is currently sitting at 19. Jacob, are you feeling okay about that, or how are you feeling about that?
I would love to see it higher. I'm also eating good with this list so far, so I kind of don't want to push my luck.
Sure.
But like, Armored Core 6 is my number 4. I think, I think it is an exceptionally well-made, polished, intriguing, thematically game. Like I basically gave my pitch for it last week, so I don't have like that much more to say about it. But I do recognize its niche-ness, and like I don't know. I'm not heartbroken that it's 19. I'm really happy that it's on the list.
I mean, we're talking niche, and we're talking about the making of Karateka. I mean, that's about as niche as you can
but
get.
it's like I love from like an ideological perspective Karateka. Like even having not played it, I think that game is so cool, and I'm really happy to have it on the list. So like I don't want to push that lower if I'm not fighting for it to go down.
To appease Jeff, I've moved Making of Karateka to number 18. Shadow Gambit now at 17.
Now I want it.
Is this feeling better, Jeff?
I guess I will say it's a weird argument, Jacob, to say like, I would like to see it higher, but I'm happy that my other games that I think we all agree should be higher are already higher. Like, I don't know that you need to like, it feels like people are being very polite and making sacrifices. And I just want to get in order that I guess makes sense to some degree. What was Karateka on your list, Hanson?
It's 4.
In the spirit of not being polite,
Do it.
Finally.
Xenoblade 3 and Octopath Traveler 2 are both solo passion projects, and they are right next to each other, higher than everyone else's solo passion
That's totally
projects.
fair.
Yep.
I think I get away with that because RPGs are big games, and people just like generally have this idea that like, well, yeah, if I put that investment into it, then I would probably feel the same way too.
Right.
And I think I honestly get away with a lot because of that feeling.
Let me tell you what you would feel if you invested in being in a mecha for 40 hours.
I tried, but I watched my partner play through it, if that counts. It's a cool looking game.
What are we proposing here?
I think it's totally fair to think that Xenoblade and Octopath are too high, just given that they are also solo passion projects. I mean, that being said, like, I think there's something to be said for like most satisfying payoff of a decade's worth of RPGs.
Yeah.
There's something there, but
Have we gone into detail about that already? What exactly that payoff is? With spoilers?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's difficult to, like, even with spoilers, it would be difficult to convey the entirety of 3 whole video games worth of stuff. But I mean, do you want spoiler games on it? I can give it like at least a broad premise.
Love that.
Spoilers for Xenoblade 3, everybody. The DLC. Here we go. Check the time codes if you want to skip ahead.
So the premise of the Xenoblade series that only becomes clear after you're basically to the end of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, after playing through all of Xenoblade Chronicles 1, is that there are a couple of worlds that were created as a result of, like, Xenoblade takes place in sort of the real world, technically. Like, there is a real Earth, and a real scientist got weird and greedy and decided to create an entire new world, and a lot of stuff got really messed up because of that decision. So these worlds were essentially created. You play through all of Xenoblade Chronicles 1. It takes place in this, like, created world. The scientist in question is kind of split between them. He's still, like, sort of alive, just pulling the strings and some of this stuff in this, like, eternal, I don't know if I'd call it a prison, but, like, this just eternal, like, he's still there, conscious. And these are things that don't start actually connecting until you've played through entire games, multiple, and then you start being able to kind of piece these things together. Xenoblade, oh gosh, this is a... Sorry, I feel like I'm going to butcher this very, very long thing, but you have all of these different worlds that you find out kind of all actually existed together simultaneously, and you're putting things kind of back together the way they were before things got really messed up. But it is absolutely never framed that way. It's framed through these very, like, siloed experience of, like, well, this part of my world that I've grown up in, that has always been just my reality, and as far as I know, goes back, you know, thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And then you get to the end of it, and there's, like, you slot one little piece of the puzzle in there. And by the time you've gotten to the end of the third one, you can see that there's these, like, okay, these are all clearly connected, but, like, how did this all happen? How did these people, how are the realities, like, intermingling with each other, and how do these all fit together? And the DLC for 3 is, I mean, it's just essentially taking, like, what is the catalyst for all three of those, and you're finally putting all the pieces together. This still feels very vague, but I don't really know.
No, that's fine. And so
vague.
you're, like, interacting with that guy again, the weird entity dude who made this all happen?
No, so technically it's like the computer of that guy.
Yes.
Who is split into, like, the version of the computer that, like, has a conscience, and one that is just the, like, raw machine that is like, well, we can just kind of hit reset and then everything's fine because, you know, every human is just a human. It doesn't matter. We'll just reset the whole thing. And then you have the, like, human version of that is kind of split off from that. This sounds insane when I'm trying to...
No. I was intrigued. Help me out, because I was watching the trailer again, and they have, like, was it the Zohar? Like, going back to, like, Xenogears and stuff, right? Is this...
So I have not played Xenogears, but the concept of the conduit, as I understand, goes back to Xenogears. Like, that is a thing. As far as I know, they don't literally interact, but they are very similar concepts, and there's some similar stuff going on.
It feels a little bit like Alan Wake 2 nodding to, like, we don't have the rights to these games, but we're going to kind of hint that there's some connections here. Okay, so that type of thing. All right. Spoilers done?
I think so.
Okay.
Cool.
Sarah, what would you slide on that bottom?
What?
What would you slide on the bottom list?
Excuse me?
What would I slot from where? What do you want me to do?
Just what would you move on the list, Sarah?
Nothing. It's
Really?
fine.
Okay, I just was making sure you weren't like City Skylines 2 needs to be above Kelsey's deal RPGs or I'm going to riot.
I guess if we need to split up Xenoblade and Octopath Traveler, like, that makes perfect sense to me.
We can. It just feels arbitrary. Like, I don't know, you know, if someone is making a case that another game should go between them, but just because they're two RPGs next to each other doesn't feel like, wow, that's impossible on a list, you know?
Yeah, would you fight for that with Shadow Gambit?
Not for my own sake, but from the temperature of the conversation, I feel like Octopath Traveler 2 maybe could go down 1 or 2, or maybe it's more that Armored Core 6 should go up.
I feel like Armored Core 6 should go up.
Certainly, I'm more persuaded by Xenoblade's pitch than Octopath Traveler's. It's hard because I'm just operating on, you know, how good Kelsey is at communicating how cool these games are. But I would love for Armored Core to go up. I think it's a really good game.
I'm going to do something, and if anybody wants to scream about it, now is the time. I have moved Armored Core 6 to number 15, and I've split the RPGs in twain. Does this seem okay for folks? All right, this list right now is number 11, Chia, number 12, Chance of Sonar, number 13, Vemba, 14, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Future Redeemed, number 15, Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon, number 16, Octopath Traveler 2, number 17, City Skylines 2, number 18, Shadow Gambit The Cursed Crew, number 19, The Making of Karateka, and number 20, Super Mario Brothers Wonder. Feels about right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Lock
All right.
it in.
Tidy. Lock it. Here we go, everybody. The 210s, number 1. Now, I was saving this a little bit, but when we're talking about solo passion projects, I feel like we're all dancing around the fact that a near solo passion project is currently sitting at number 1 on this list with Hitman Freelancer.
Uh-oh.
I know.
Devaluing Haley's experience.
I'm not. Haley, you are a fan, as far as I understand it, of Hitman Freelancer, and it's one of those games that you want to spend more time with and want to love more, but everything you have played, you loved. Is that the fair read here, ma'am?
Hitman Freelancer is the best roguelike ever made.
Ever made?
Yes.
Hang on.
It is.
Can you show the text that Leo sent you to say that? That's wow.
It's
Really?
easy for me to agree with that because I don't like that genre. So I'm like, I believe this comment very easily.
Like, Cult of the Lamb was my game of the year last year, and this it's just absolutely dummies every other roguelike.
Like
I've ever
Hades?
played. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
All of them. Name another one. I'll say yeah.
God of War
Lambs is
Valhalla?
correct because
I haven't played that, but yeah.
Undermine looks like dog is what you're saying?
Spelunky is
Yeah, and I played
giant
50
dogs
hours of that game.
Okay, so all right, this is far from a solo passion project, is the case you're making, Haley.
I really love this. I think like I was.
Where
really
is it
into-
on your list, Haley?
Do I need
Where
to
is
give
it
a
on the list?
Do I need to give a number? Will that shatter the illusion? Like, how do we play the top 10? Because I feel like as soon as we start saying numbers, does it get really mathematical? Or
I don't
are
want
we
it to
just
get
like,
mathematical. I think
You
it
need
helps.
to make some choices. All games are great, but we need some clarity on where this
I
sits
know.
amongst your
Yeah.
other top games.
This is so hard for me because I love these top 4 games so much. Like, truly, like I love them all. Like, I really love them all. Like, Zelda's at the bottom, but these 3, the top 3, are like hard for me.
It's Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate
differentiate.
3, and Hitman Freelancer for people listening.
Thank you. Sorry.
Now, I've noticed if this was a court of law, I would say, Your Honor, she's dodging the question. Where is Hitman Freelancer on your top 10 list, Haley?
It's number 3.
Okay, all right.
okay. That's pretty high.
Hey, all right. Okay, perfect. So, I mean, Leo,
Badgering the witness.
yeah, you've been sitting pretty. You've been seeding this the entire time. You diabolically asked to go first, and it was such a smart move because Hitman Freelancer has
What
been.
did he ask?
He
at the
has-
beginning of
DM?
the last episode.
yeah, he did. Yeah, he just
He was like, "Oh,
volunteered
can I
the
go
first.
in? Can I go first?" And then we like went
Interesting.
Yeah,
in a little snake after.
yeah. I guess nobody else wants to go. I guess I'll rush in and say Hitman Freelancer real quick. But hey, shrewd, Leo, how much hyperbole can you lob at this experience? Is what I'm asking.
No hyperbole, unfortunately. It'll just be a straight reading of my emotions on it.
Smart
Which is
answer.
That I
It was
will
a
be
total
surprised.
gotcha question.
Dodged a bullet there.
Damn it.
He's already won. Stop the count.
I've never fought for a Leo pick to be number 1 ever, and I never will again. But I will be so surprised if I ever enjoy a game again as much as I enjoy Hitman Freelancer.
Again on planet Earth.
Again on planet Earth.
Whoa.
If I can take you all for a little journey, it might not all sound relevant, but I just ask that you close your eyes and come with me for a moment.
Okay, I'm ready.
It's 2016.
Oh, that's not this year.
Kyle's eyes are open, Leo.
Kyle, you left the
Kyle,
journey.
close your eyes.
If I close my eyes, I'm going to fall asleep.
Join us for the journey, Kyle. It's 2016. A new game comes out that's not necessarily your thing, but it looks neat, and so you check it out. And guess what? It's your favorite game ever. It becomes the bar by which you judge all other games. You wonder why other games don't do the things it's doing, or more specifically, why Other games don't try to make you feel the way this game makes you feel. It's 2018. The sequel comes out. The whole first one's in it, plus new stuff, plus it's better. You put in almost as many hours into it, but you're dwindling a little bit. It's 2021. The third game comes out. You like it, you know it's good, you admire it, but your heart just isn't singing for it the way it used to. Hansen asks you in the Game of the Year discussion to list the new features. You can't even think of any. It's humiliating. Then, to the start of 2022, January, they announce a roguelike mode, which is up your alley in this imagined scenario. Make sure you really imagine you like it. So you re-download the game to prepare, to practice, because it seems like it's going to be a higher stakes mode. And over the course of this full year of 2022, you play so much of this game, you fall deeper in love with it than you ever have. You feel ashamed that when the first one was your favorite game of all time, you still didn't like it enough. You still didn't really even get what was so great about it. And you're still starting to scratch the surface of what it's giving you. Then January 2023, this is a January game that I'm still playing every week. January 2023, the roguelike mode comes out, and it is 100 times better than the game has ever been. That's how much I love this.
Whoa.
Can we open our eyes?
Do we get to open our eyes now?
100 times better.
100 times better. I can't
Isn't the
overstate.
best thing ever?
I still go back to the regular content, the legacy content or whatever. I still enjoy it. I still enjoy what it gives me. But I start to see how limiting it was.
Right.
Versus the way this has every single one of the game's hundreds of items all have their distinct purpose and moments and anecdote generating ability. That looking back at the previous most freeing creative sandbox in video games, it now looks limiting compared to this.
Are we talking about Tears of the Kingdom? We're talking about Hitman still?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. You know what? I'm sorry.
Leo, can you just give a primer of what Hitman Freelancer is? Like, I understand it's a roguelike mode of like that trilogy. They took that trilogy and turned it into a roguelike mode, but is it like the same levels? Is it that you're going through? I'm unaware of like kind of the core premise and what's new.
It's all the same maps. The new map is the home base, the home you're working out of. A lot of the progression is just getting different cosmetics for your home, different furniture or like music. You walk up to the music player and change what genre of music is playing over your PA system. But you bounce between the game's missions in a way that is continuously immersive. It's like it's one long flow. It's the same maps, but you're traveling through them and coming back from them in a way that is part of like one canon story. If you die, you'll get loading screens of 47 hiding from the police by the side of the road, and then you get back to your base and he's suturing himself up on the table. Or if you win a mission, he's just like happily chilling, playing chess with his computer on a victory. Or if you like escape a mission and don't kill the targets, but you don't die, there's unique stuff for that too. It doesn't just play a death one when you fail the mission. It's like him pensive in his apartment on a rainy night. It all flows together completely cohesively in a way that you'll do a mission on one map, get your ass kicked, and then 3 hours later go back to that map and have a big victory on it. And it's like one big arc and one big story that makes these things really satisfying. Because that's the big change, is the stakes. You have things you are losing now. If you drop your gun and don't pick it up, it's there for good. And you spent money on it. I'll talk more about the new stuff in it. Probably the biggest new thing is that there is an in-game economy now. You're earning currency in a bunch of different ways by doing objectives and by cracking open safes that are totally new and in a bunch of different places, bunch of different ways to open them. There are new enemy types in the showdowns, assassins and lookouts, that really change how you approach those missions. Those showdowns are like nothing that has ever been in the game before.
You're
But
sweating during those. You're like, everything matters, because if you die, you're dead. Like, I so cheeked the save functionality in the main game because you just like, oh, I frigged up, back to the save. If you mess up on those missions, it's like you are running for your life to avoid getting shot. It's like you actually care, which is like exactly what Leo's saying. It makes it makes it matter for the first time in that game's history.
And he's like, and in the main game, you may as well try to shoot your way out of everything or whatever. You may as well just brute force it, see when the last autosave was. It's probably 5 minutes ago at the latest. But now it's like, do I even try this thing because what's on my person and the stakes matter to me so much? And so everything is this calculated risk. And it's kind of the same systems. I mean, similar systems, bunch of new systems, but given this new weight to every single decision you're making, that makes everything so satisfying when you pull it off. And when you fail to pull something off, it's still a learning experience. I think people rob themselves of something in this mode when they Alt F4 and undo their loss at the last second, because it's really, like I said, all part of one story. And that includes you learning from what you did wrong, learning about the area you were in and what you didn't expect. And your brain is constantly cycling with, what I could do differently next time. And you'll maybe get the chance. The other thing I want to say about this, of the next 300 things I want to say about this, is I still get my ass kicked in it. I'm 200 hours in. I'm getting my ass kicked. I still cannot realize the campaign.
There's a 1,000 in this game. I saw that.
He's the hitman.
Is that like max level here?
No, I think max like 8,000, I think, and I got at least 500 this year. But
Jesus.
it's not. I don't lose because it's unfair. I lose because it's continuously generating scenarios for me that I haven't solved before. There's no one-size-fits-all solution the way there is in the main game. You'll get really attached to your favorite way of doing things, the most reliable way of doing things. In this one, you might not have a silenced pistol. You probably won't for the first few hours. And that's like number one hitman crutch is a silenced pistol. But you have to find out other ways to get through all these scenarios than the ones you're used to. It's constantly... I've waffled on whether people who are new to Hitman should try Freelancer, because it is so hard. It's kind of like the end game content, really, for people who know the game really well. But I do think it teaches you the game way faster than anything else, because it is constantly giving you new things to do, constantly pushing you into these arenas, both literally pushing you into parts of the map you haven't been before, but also to like ways of thinking about it you haven't had to conquer before.
I love it.
And so the targets are different every time on every map.
Yeah, and those are all new for Freelancer. I've gotten repeats a couple times in my many, many hours.
Like, for a fun example, the loads are all random. And there was one time I loaded into Paris, and I didn't know who was going to be the person I needed to kill. And for some reason, the luck was they all loaded together in a clump, and I had a grenade. So I had a choice to make, and I had like 6 seconds to make it. Do I chuck the nade at the 4 of them, and the way to get out is behind me? I could pull this off and be done. Or do I calm down and go in? I chucked the nade, and I died, and I learned my lesson. And the next time I loaded in and I had a grenade, and maybe a couple of them were clumped, I stopped and thought about it instead of just monkey brain chucking a grenade into a live show with hundreds of people around me.
Your grenade killed 3 out of the 4 of them, and the 4th one was the one who was the suspect.
The 4th one was around the corner.
Yeah. And in those moments, you're like, well, I knew it was a risk, and here I am. I've been keeping anecdotes all year about the moments I've been getting into in this game.
Yeah, and love it. Whatever you got, man.
What are showdowns? Because
those are like once every few missions. Essentially, you have to you have like 4 to 8 potential targets, and you have to look at them through the camera and see like, okay, I know the target's wearing a hat. I know they've got glasses. Do they or don't they have that? You mark them as not the suspect. They've got certain tells. If they do anything besides those tells, then they're not the right guy. They have a certain type of meeting. If they have a different type of meeting, you eliminate them. So I wasn't sure how those would last playing the technical test, but I still really enjoy those and still have no problem being really patient, checking everybody off one by one. But I think really the most special thing is the way that the variety of objectives push you into these situations. And those are what I have anecdotes about. For instance, on Haven Island, I had to kill a guy with an unsilenced pistol, which, even if you have a silenced pistol at that point, suddenly, how do I do it with an unsilenced pistol? This guy was on the back porch of this evil villain's mansion, working the grill. And I said, I could kill him. That's certainly something I'm capable of here, but I'm surrounded by guards. But there is this speedboat exit that's locked. And so the mission then became, wait, is the speedboat key inside this mansion? And so I'm creeping around trying to find the key within this mansion, which is like a totally new objective on this tiny part of this huge map that I haven't had to do before. And then by the end, the unsilenced pistol kill wasn't even the mission. I popped him and ran in the speedboat because the mission was getting the key, and it was its own satisfying journey stealthing through that mansion. And I get this so in my head, I think I'm so smart. I think I'm Master Hitman.
Right.
And like people just have their own framework for thinking about this game and working through it in a way you can always learn from. I was watching Haley's stream, and she had a target inside one of the houses on Whittleton Creek. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, so she could hop the fence and go in the back window, or else there's a gutter she can climb and sneak down. And she walks up and rings the doorbell and drops an explosive on the ground and walks away. She comes and answers the door and gets blown up. It's like, I never would have thought to do that.
That's so
But that's
good.
just the density of stuff. You are always carving your own path through it. There's one Miami kill where it's on the podium. You can rig the fireworks to explode everybody on the podium. This one happened on a stream of mine. And so I needed a collateral explosive kill for a specific challenge. And I said, well, that guy's on that podium. Can I rig this whole thing to blow? But wait, it only goes off when somebody wins the race. So I have to wait till the race is over and wait for them to come up. And then they come up and they're discovering the bodies, but the fireworks are still going to go off any second. And I'm in the booth where tech is working, just watching this on TV. There's like an in-game TV showing the podium for the podium ceremony, watching the actual people walk around in chaos and then suddenly getting all blown up. It's all these situations that are technically in the main game, but you just don't get in that scenario the way you do here. It opens it all up.
The anecdotes here are reminding me of the way people talk about Baldur's Gate 3 and make me excited about it, but like haven't had those experiences yet. It's like the same kind of thing where I'm like, man, all of that sounds so fun. That sounds so awesome. I don't have any of those.
Right. Yeah,
I mean, I could say the same thing about Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, watching other people approach puzzles the way that I did and seeing them do it different ways just consistently blew my mind. And it's like we haven't sort of cemented this, but the top 3 games, on our list are all games that excel at giving players agency to approach it in just ways that we just didn't really play games until this year.
Oh, Kyle, I don't know if you're looking at the same top 3.
Yeah, Alan Wake 2?
So I agree that Zelda should be above Alan Wake 2. Is that what you're saying
Zelda
there,
and Hitman are what I'm talking about. Yeah,
the correct top 3. No, it is. I mean,
excuse me, Ben?
I said the correct top 3. But that was a positive thing for you, Sarah.
Yeah, that was in your favor.
Yeah, come on, I was trying to help you.
I think the way it stands out for me is that it is every damn mission something cool or interesting happens, or you learn something new. Tears of the Kingdom, I had a lot of time where I wasn't really enjoying it because I didn't really, I could have put more into it, more creativity into the solutions I had and probably had a better time, but it just wasn't the density of notable experiences that this game has. And I totally think it's fair to say that these are experiences I'm having because I'm this deep in the game and going for every objective, which you don't even have to do. I just think it's really fun because it keeps doing this stuff for me. But a lot of it is luck-based too. There was a time on Dubai where an interesting combination of 3 assault rifle kills, 3 shotgun kills, and don't take any damage. So doing this without getting into combat. And I had a silenced assault rifle, got that fine, and I only had a loud shotgun. So I'm near an exit thinking, how do I get these 3 kills? Here's 2 guards. They're looking away from me. I could pop, take care of them pretty good. But then somebody's going to come in here, and I can't guarantee I won't get shot the second they come in the door because I want to get this take no damage one. And as I'm standing there looking at these 2 guards, evaluating my surroundings, the door opens and a random guard is dragging the body of a guard I killed with the assault rifle through the room, just like through the hallway next to us. He's just walking by, focused on his own little task. Just delivering himself to me because of the systems working as intended. And I just got all 3 of them right next to the exit before anybody came, and it was perfect. And there's a lot of luck is a big factor as well as preparedness. It's a combination.
I do think to Tears of the Kingdom's detriment, I guess, I love that game. I haven't played Hitman Freelancer, but once I figured out how to make my flying machine, I did not really vary from that flying machine. I learned what worked. I got the power that let you just rebuild the things that you had built before. And there were things in the dungeons that I experimented with and were really happy with. it did unfortunately fall back into like I figured out what worked and I kind of did that, which felt even while I was playing it, I was like, this feels like a missed opportunity for me that I just like had my machine and I was like, this is good. This is what I'll roll with.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the thrill, though, is that you can do that. I mean, would you want to have some option of the game where it's like, okay, if you keep building the same thing, it's going to limit you in some way in Tears of the Kingdom? Like, it seems like if they give you complete freedom, that's not really a downside, you know?
I think what Jacob's saying is that I wish the game had put me into more situations where building a flying machine wasn't, like, the right solution.
Yeah, it was like, I wish a hover bike solves every scenario, and because of that, I'm not interacting with like 95% of the possibilities in that game because the one that I found just does everything. And like that, I do wish that it pushed me to do things that weren't that.
But you guys are talking explicitly about traversal. I mean, every shrine, I felt like I built something unique to sort of maybe that's
true.
That's an example.
But in the shrines, you could just use the bomb arrows on like some of the targets. So even the shrines, I feel like were easily exploitable once you found your like, this is what I can do.
For combat.
No, but I agree with you, Kyle. On every shrine was cool and unique, and I don't want to take that away. But it was, you know, a lot of that game was traversal for me because that's what Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom do so well. It's a big open world where you can do anything. But like, you know, I didn't, after the first like 20 hours, I found that I was confronting all the problems of traversal in the same way. And I kind of wish that I wasn't.
And just to be clear, that was a little bit of a self-imposed, right?
So you are a moron, Jacob?
Fast travel, right?
I started fast traveling eventually because I got bored of making the same hover bike and going everywhere. But even then, you know, I got all the light routes in the in the depths, and like I did that by just driving a hover bike from one to the other for like 4 hours.
Yeah, maybe I'm too stupid for not just locking into hover bike. Obviously, like I used it a couple times, you know, but it wasn't like, well, this is the game now, is riding on a hover bike. By the way, people listening, it was a fascinating shift away from Hitman Freelancer, but Leo, noted and respected, passion digested, just to put a half of a button on that. But yeah, I am curious to see where everybody's at for Tears of the Kingdom here overall. Like, obviously this is the section of the show and this entire episode, it feels like the part where we try and ding some of the greatest games of the year. So I'm always just fascinated by like the first time we started talking about Tears of the Kingdom, I was like, this sucks. Like, I don't know if it's just the recency bias situation, but like, especially going back and like editing clips for the best of for MinnMax, like going back to our deepest dive for Tears of the Kingdom, it's been fun to like have that fresh perspective again. Like, remember May where we all played this game and we said, Jesus, this is a cool, weird ass thing that Nintendo made. This is one of the most bold pieces of game design that's been out there to this degree. Like, I do think, and just, you know, setting the table a little bit here, like, I'm not some Nintendo super fan. You've seen what I've done to our dear friend Mario. I've been trying to kick him throughout these entire things.
Did you kill
Is this
Mario
all a
to
setup?
prove
Did
that
you kill Mario in order to prove that you weren't a shill?
Yeah, it's just like, The Departed. Like, look, I'll kill a cop. I swear I'm not an undercover cop. So that's a cool natural transition to talking about, like, yeah, I'm not a Zelda super fan either. Like, I really enjoyed Breath of the Wild, and I still feel like I'm taking crazy pills, feeling like, did the rest of the world just forget how cool Tears of the Kingdom was? Like, just feel like the last couple months, every time this game comes up, it's with like a negative tone, and it has sent me reeling. I think Tears of the Kingdom is awesome. It's my favorite game of the year, for sure. And I think I think it's the wildest move set in gaming history between Recall, Ascend, Ultra Hand, and Fuse, like giving you all of those abilities in the game. And they are all abilities that feels like they should completely break the game. And for me, somehow it just feels like it just makes it better. Like giving you all of those tools, giving you that much freedom to rewind time, ascend. I mean, all these things just feel like they would shatter any game. And the fact that the game still works, you were upset about the the bike, like, okay, I can build a bike and then I'm using it too much. I get that. But like the fact that the game does not break down with this wild moveset they give you, and the fact that it doesn't have to do any of that nonsense that I feel like every other game would do of like, all right, we give you these awesome abilities, but we're going to kind of nerf you in this area. In this part of the game, you don't have it actually. And then it's like, no, we're not limiting you in any way. Like, hey, you can build whatever you want. Okay, but there's going to be some meter for like build meter that's going to deplete over time. No, just build the crap. How big can you make it? Go. Like, I just feel like it should be embraced in a huge way, and I feel like it has. I just am trying to get a read for where everybody else is at for Tears of the Kingdom. Don't forget how cool that game was, is my thesis.
And that was like quarter one. We're way past.
No.
We're on Leo's Hitman thing now.
I am absolutely with you. I think Ultra Hand specifically is the kind of mechanic that comes along like so infrequently that just radically makes me readdress how I look at every other game. Even Ascend, I feel that way about, where it's like games that I have played after Tears of the Kingdom feel lacking after having played Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
They are all abilities that I never want to play another Zelda game without having them.
Yeah.
They were all such game changers for an open world design that it's like, yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know what Nintendo does next with Zelda that isn't going to feel like a letdown if they don't give me that kind of creative freedom.
Yeah, and I know like when it came out, there's a lot of like, oh, is it better than Breath of the Wild? I don't know. And like, I've played a lot of Breath of the Wild this year with my nephews, and it is wild to go back to it. Like, it's still obviously an incredible game.
Wild to go back.
It's the Janet joke. She got it. No, but it is like going back, just like, oh my God, just all these shrines. Like you can't do anything. Where's your tools? Like, where's your abilities? And, we talked about it in the deepest dive, but it's just such an awesome feeling. I just felt like I had this sphere of possibility around Link at all times in that game. Like, I know if I just put things together in the right way and start thinking about things in a different way, I feel like I can do absolutely anything in this game. On a physics level, I guess is a big qualifier there.
To share a Hitman-esque anecdote about it, maybe my favorite shrine in the game is one where weirdly, the combat shrines went from the weakest part of Breath of the Wild to maybe the strongest part of Tears of the Kingdom in terms of design. And there's one where you start out and all your weapons and armor is taken away. And they usually give you, they're like, oh, here's the laser shooting Zonai thing and use it to kill them. But in this, it was only parts to build like a little go-kart. And you realize like, oh, okay, I can drive this into an enemy and it will do damage. And you continue to do that. And as you hit these little enemy encampments around this giant open kind of like space that the dungeon is in, you keep finding more and bigger vehicle parts until by the end I was driving like literally like a Mad Max, like giant spiked wheels shooting flames, lasers and electricity coming out, and just like smashing through enemies like bowling pins, in this way where it is this like natural building up of things that they never tell you like, hey, this is the one where you build a Mad Max car, but like just their ability to do that and then have other combat shrines that are like similarly interesting, built around completely different mechanics is so cool.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that throughout that entire game, even by the end of the game, solving puzzles still being like, wait, oh, what if that wouldn't actually work? Would it? Like the fact that feeling is spread out and you're still having it by the end of that game is just such a testament to those abilities that they put in there. I mean, the first time we realized it, like, oh, wait a minute, I can just move a platform and then get on it and then rewind time, and then the platform can just like be an elevator anywhere I want to go. Or just, the simplest little things of like the first time you fuse a shield and a rocket and it's like, all right, here we go, just flying straight up. Just like those little moments throughout that entire game are so freaking fun and cool. It's awesome, y'all.
Also, this is a completely unobjective. I mean, all of these are unobjective points. I think it's the best looking game on this list. I think it's like one of the most beautiful games I've ever played.
Yeah.
Ben, just say yes. Don't argue.
Well, Hi-Fi Rush is pretty damn good looking. Like when I think of my time in Tears of the Kingdom, I think of like being up in the sky and watching storms roll in below you. and seeing like storm clouds and the rain coming down. I was like, this is such a cool idea. Just watching from up above in my perch where there's just puzzles all around me on these little sky islands, and then below just seeing the weather. And I know you're big on the lighting in particular, Jacob.
Yeah, it's like this and Breath of the Wild, which is kind of a knock that Breath of the Wild did it too, but it's like it's maybe the only game I've ever played that like I get similar feelings to when I am actually hiking and like come around a corner and there's like a sunrise or something.
Yeah.
Like I kind of they just managed to capture that in a way that like very few open world games have, of like accidentally experiencing the beauty of the natural world.
Shout out to Jacob's video on that. That was my favorite video you made this year, Jacob.
This is all a big plug. Watch my video.
Check it out, everybody. Will someone please subscribe to his channel? Yeah, I mean, it is unbelievable they got it running on the Switch. Pretty old hardware at this point. You know, it's a little rough at spots. Like it's not Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but you know, it is beautiful. The art direction is beautiful, but there's certainly a ton of areas. Like I'm always thinking of like, there's like that one section you go down there to get the one material, but like getting in the cart and going down to the cave. I just remember doing that again and again, and like the textures were just abysmal, barely popping in as you're entering this cave. I feel like it's one of those games that we all are stunned by the beauty of, but when a remaster of this game comes out in 10 years, we're all going to look back on this and puke in our hands at actually how it's trying to get.
Jeez.
I got big news about every game, I guess, other than Hi-Fi Rush.
Hi-Fi Rush is permanent and forever. It's worth noting.
Can I give a ding on this game to change?
May I also ding after Haley's ding?
Haley, could we get one positive ding, or should we call it a ping, and then you can ding?
Okay, ping. I love this game. I really like this game. It's number 4 for me. I don't not like Tears of the Kingdom pretext. Like, I like this game.
Love it.
Ding. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills in that we don't like hate how Link isn't have a shred of personality in these titles.
Interesting angle.
I hate
Okay.
it.
Why would you need that?
I need that. It's too late in our lives to be like, Link can just be a lump of clay.
No, embrace
He needs to be
tradition.
more
Why?
than that. It's too long now.
It's called storytelling.
Tell
Oh
us
my
about
God.
Agent 47.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
Agent
Like, I get
47 doesn't have a girlfriend that gets kidnapped in front of his eyes, and then he goes
Yeah.
and doesn't make it about like, hello.
Well, you didn't hear when he said,
You're applying
you
some
know,
personality there. I don't think there's any overt romance.
You can't just go, huh?
They do look
Exactly.
together.
He
do
works
live
for
together,
her.
that's true, for
Yeah.
sure, but-
Yeah, but you
Which,
compare
you know,
that. Think
those
of
romances.
the expressions
so
on his
done with
face as he's like exploring a tower for the first time and then rocketing up into the
goes-
sky. No, his
goes,
face. He's an
"Oh,
expressive guy. He's an
yeah.
expressive dude for everything
He's
except
not.
for.
We're
When
not
his
gonna
eyes
sit here and
open
pretend that Link
slightly
has a
more?
personality. Okay, we're not gonna
tired.
like.
No,
And the excuse is
Yeah.
always, he's the conduit for the player. His name's Link, Haley, you stupid asshole. That's why he doesn't have a personality. I'm like, that's a dumb reason. Give your
I'm sorry for
protagonist
saying
personality. I'm so
we gotta
done
stop
with
saying,
it.
shouting that at you.
I
It's really
like.
not fair.
I feel like I'm crazy that people want him to have a
I
personality.
would
That's like,
love for him
this-
to have a personality.
I get that Zelda games have a story, and sometimes people care about those stories a lot. But this to me feels like people saying like, "Well, the story in Monster Hunter isn't very good." It's like, why are you playing it for that? That's not what this is about.
And it's.
I love the
It's
story
true.
in Zelda though. Like Twilight Princess is my favorite Zelda. If I got a tattoo, it would be Midna's helmet. Like I love
Prove
that game so
it.
much.
Let's
Come on,
Okay,
Let's
come on.
revisit this after the movie comes out and see how you feel about Link having a personality.
Chris Pratt's
Like-
gonna nail it.
Yeah, if Nintendo screws that up,
God.
that'll prove that not having a personality was the
I
right
just
choice.
think that like if Twilight Princess's story had Tears of the Kingdom gameplay, I would die. Like that would be amazing. Imagine if you were building something to save Midna from getting like the light hitting her and you're blocking shadow or something. She's like, help the light, and you're like, oh, like randomly building a building to protect her. I would like the stakes would be so much more exciting. Whereas in this game, it's like, yeah, I think my girlfriend's dead. I'm gonna go over here and like run over here and do this thing.
Yeah,
for
but the
80
running over
hours.
there is so cool, Haley, that I guess we all
And
just
it
don't care
is,
about the
and I
rest.
love it, and I don't want anyone to think I'm hating on this game because I love it. It literally is my 4th favorite game of this year.
Yeah.
But I'm just like so done with the excuse that Link just needs to be the link between player. Like he needs to have a personality. It's 2023.
I
Next
think
game,
that is-
you better do
know about
something. You
that.
better talk.
That is worth talking about, though. Does this game have a story? Does anybody remember?
Yeah,
my biggest
it's got
game
one of the
is
best
that
moments of the
story.
year.
I mean, we talked.
allegedly.
I mean, yeah, the ending of that game
I
is
didn't play it. I
incredible.
don't know. I just have to assume you guys are right, but I don't know.
Okay, so my issue with the story is that basically Nintendo tied all the stories to locations on the map, and then they encourage like free exploration of the map, and and then the stories you see doesn't go in an order, right? So if you decide to go off in one really far direction, you're not picking it up from the beginning, you're picking it up from the middle. And that to me just feels like such a bad way to tell a story. Like clearly story was not priority here. It was a sandbox Gary's mod that was the priority here. And in my opinion, I would prefer priority on the story because the story is just so cool in this game. It has just a great story, and then they just took it and they just punted it into the ocean, and they said, doesn't matter, have you tried putting a rocket onto a log? That's what matters. So for me, they really just like dropped all of the things that I cared about, like the exploration in Breath of the Wild, outstanding. Exploration in Tears of the Kingdom, it just felt like Breath of the Wild, but like we put a hat on it. You know, we changed the environment a little bit, and I didn't get that feeling of like new places. Because it was just the same places again. And then they were like, we made you the Underdark. And I'm like, there's nothing here. It's empty. There's just monsters. And then you're going to force me to grind so I can charge my battery. And then they were like, what about the sky? And I'm like, that's empty too. And you're telling me that, like, I feel like the first 5 hours of the game were the same 5 hours I had in every 5 hours of the game. It's like you find the guy with the sign, you find the Korok, you go to the dungeon, they tell you about the infamous war of imprisonment, and then you do it like 20 more times. And it just felt like the same thing over and over and over and over again until the game ended.
Do you like puzzles?
Yes.
Okay. No, I mean, and I'm not, this is not me like coming after you, but like genuinely, like that is such a rewarding thing for me is how every shrine and dungeon I had to approach like every puzzle differently, and that was hugely rewarding for me. And even like moving between the islands and the sky and stuff like that. And again, sorry, I'm not saying like you did it wrong. I'm just wondering if that's just a less of a value to you. Like do you not get the same joy out of like figuring things out in that way?
I think it's just like I had fun with it the first 5 times. And then it's like when it's just 50 more times of like putting things together in a puzzle, I'm like, look, we need a little bit more here. I need a little more like characterization. I need a little more plot. I need a little more like investment.
So you're normally the person who's like, forget about all this story stuff in video games. I feel like normally you're championing just mechanics. So it's weird that
I do want to read Henry in the Backstage Pass said, can't wait for someone to tell Sarah, quote, Outer Wilds lover Podzorski that nonlinear stories are good.
No, but it's interesting to be the plot stuff for Tears of the Kingdom. Like, I wasn't over the moon about it. Like, it built, and I think the ending really got me. But like, it's 1/60th of the experience to me was, hey, we're gonna show some cutscenes out of order, piece it together. And I think it's more interesting for honestly a fine story from my point of view to have it like, hey, what if we rearranged it in this puzzle, kind of Immortality-esque, right? Like it is more fun to be like, okay, this and then that and then that. It's more engaging than if they just ran those cutscenes chronologically. I would have fallen asleep. It would have done much less for me. I'd rather sacrifice the story to have that much freedom and exploration. And it's a tough thing as a designer to balance for sure, but I am very happy that they made the trade.
Well,
they
there's
did.
this brand new game, Ben, called Lego Fortnite.
Yeah, it's freaking
and
cool.
You can ultra hand all you want in
it's
it.
Cool.
And you can build everything from your dreams.
Well,
I love
Lego
it.
building is Ultra Hand. I never even thought of that.
Whoa.
I didn't finish Tears of the Kingdom because it's just, I knew when I started it that I'm like going to drag this out for the next 5 years and then barely finish it before the next one came out, because that's what I did with Breath of the Wild. And frankly, that's what I enjoyed doing. Like, I liked kind of taking it at my own pace. So I don't intend to finish Tears of the Kingdom anytime soon. But I love this game. I feel like, to me, Tears of the Kingdom, and I think maybe we're all maybe a little split on if it's better than Breath of the Wild, but to me, Nintendo did the impossible and did it twice with Tears of the Kingdom, where Breath of the Wild, to me, is the greatest game of all time. And I'm like, what are you gonna do, make the greatest game of all time again? And I'm like, you kind of did, which does make it weird that it's not my number one.
Right.
I'm like, is this not my favorite game of all time now, or the best one to me? But then I have a different one for number one. But like, I don't know, that's just my vibe this year. Like, it doesn't make sense, and I don't really mind that it doesn't. But yeah, I love Tears of the Kingdom. I think it's always the great debate that you guys kind of bring up. And I think that's why we started from here. Like, Ben, you're like, why did we start like from such a negative place? I think we started it just in conversation with all the awesome moments Leo brought up with Hitman Freelancer and the ideas of what does play look like in a space and how can developers facilitate that play and to what degree should that be on the player versus the design. And I think, y'all kind of started with how Tears of the Kingdom maybe doesn't quite force you to experiment with all the cool things it made. So then it does end up becoming rote because you end up doing the same things. But I actually really like that about it. That was my number one fear going into Tears of the Kingdom, that I'm going to have to learn how to MacGyver my way through this video game and that I wouldn't be able to do it. And I think their solution to that was so smart in having the shrines basically be tutorials to teach you how to experiment, but then also having the fun of the shrines be breaking them. It is a game where it is so much more fun to find the unintended solution than the solution. Yeah. But finding the solution is also valuable. As far as repetition, I mean, I think inherently open world games will have repetition in that they have like this quest type is like this, that, or the other. For me, they didn't wear thin because I felt like the in-between parts were so long for me because I'm kind of doing a slower, more completionist run of the game, even though I probably won't actually complete it like to that degree, but I'm sort of taking my time with it and I find the things spaced out. Narratively, I've personally never really been moved by a Zelda story. I haven't played every game, but I think they're all kind of the same sort of fairy tale told in different ways, which I think is interesting. Yeah. But I don't come here to like get moved or to cry or to be whatever. I think they have really cool characters and I think that's where the personality is. And I, love walking around and talking to like a bird man who's like a journalist for the Post in the other side of town and the sign guy. Like that's what I get a kick out of narratively from Zelda.
I do feel like it's worth pointing out that like this game starts really well and it ends exceptionally well. Yes. It's like, honestly, when I think about the story of Tears of the Kingdom, I think like, I really enjoyed that because like it culminates in such a good way. And like, I think that does a lot of work, I think that me being emotionally satisfied at the end of this game makes my read of the overall story like pretty high. Yeah, I'm totally with you. But ultimately, I'm coming to it as a big toy, and I think it succeeds as a big toy world. Yeah.
So the Quark babies are super fun. They cry, and you can shoot them off into space and do all these different things. Like I don't know. It's funny because you brought up, Ben, moment to moment fun. I feel like while Tears of the Kingdom isn't moment to moment the thrill of Spider-Man because I'm not like flying a million miles an hour, like it's a game that I have fun with pretty much the entire time, even just walking around and just seeing what pops up or what pops off. Though I do think, Sarah, you make a lot of poignant points with the fact that the depths is just like a really dark space with a bunch of monsters in it a little bit. But for me, I don't mind that as much because I think it's sort of offering something different, and that difference is a little barren, which I can see as a con, but I feel like I get enough from the different layers that I don't mind that layer being a little bit different. But you're not wrong in that. That is kind of the experience, and you could just take a bike and go around and light all this stuff. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, on the exploration front, I mean, just like those little magical moments of like the first time you're in a forest and then all the trees come to life like it's freaking Wizard of Oz. It's like, what is it, throwing apples? I mean, like, what is all this stuff?
Chronicles of Narnia, where they for Aslan.
Or I mean, underneath the castle of like, okay, I'm going to start using my bombs and start digging through. Let's see how far this goes. It's like, oh, this is now what, 4 hours of just like these catacombs underneath the castle. Just unbelievable little moments of discovery packed into every inch of this world. I'm not overlooking its faults. I really want to champion it as a really unique experience.
That's
Jeff,
so brave of you.
Yeah, I feel like
no one else is gonna.
Jeff has been eerily quiet,
scaring me.
I know.
Yeah, I guess I'm the one that didn't like Breath of the Wild to begin with. That one never clicked with me. I thought you were all insane. And this is the one where the added powers is what made me fall in love with it and made me feel like you guys did the first time. And it was like, oh, now I have the sense of exploration, the sense of freedom, the sense of, hey, what's that thing over there? I can get to it however I want to. I'm super glad that I went back to it like 2 or 3 weeks ago because it it had fallen a bit on my list, and playing through it instantly reminded me how much fun I had, how completely different from every other game it is. And then, yeah, the ending kicked ass. Like they brought it together in a way that really erased a lot of the frustrations that I had with the story up to that point. Like seeing that same freaking cutscene 5 times in a row or whatever. It was like, hey, there's a payoff here with Zelda as a character and all of that stuff that made me care more about this Zelda story than I have any of the previous ones. But I totally respect, like, as Sarah said, like, making it open-ended like that, it's the order that you get to things. And like you can totally, like, I think you got probably the worst option of like when you ran into things. And there are certainly other valid criticisms of some of those cutscenes and how they roll things out. And yeah, it was never going to be, the top tier of narratives in video games, but that finale, like, married the story and the gameplay of that final boss battle in a way that really worked for me.
I take it we talked about that in Best Moments.
We did.
I missed that part.
Don't get me started on Best Moments, Leo.
Can I the traumas unearthed yet again.
I don't want anyone to think I'm ignoring them or being rude, but I really gotta use the bathroom, so I'll be right back.
Okay.
That's so rude.
He's going to the pissy zone.
I feel like he timed that just to do the most damage.
Rude.
He literally likes his piss more than us.
No, let's talk about Alan Wake 2, because he's the most negative on it.
Quick, everybody goes about it real quick.
I'm not done dunking on Zelda if we want to keep going.
If you want to keep going, sure.
Is the
ping and
5
ding
through
system.
10 is there
that's a good point.
Is there anything in the 5 through 10 zone that like people feel should be moving around?
Right. A great question.
I honestly kind of
Not
feel
really.
like
No.
top 5, bottom 5 are pretty secure. It's just a matter of moving them within it. No, a matter of moving them within their spheres.
Yeah, I agree.
No,
You know what I
Ben
mean?
just accidentally
That wasn't
erased
me.
half the document.
That wasn't
I
me.
thought everyone yelled at me
Someone
because
did.
I did it.
No.
for-
No.
for
I think
some
it was
reason.
Kyle.
Ben's deleting things.
Where did Sea of Stars go? I feel like top 4 are going to be the top 4. Not in that order, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, what about the
I'm
order
pretty-
of 5 through 10?
Honestly,
Pretty
that's a great
happy with
question.
it, yeah.
I'm kind of happy with it too. It's so people listening, it's Sea of Stars coming in at number 5, then Hi-Fi Rush at 6, Resident Evil 4 Remake at 7, Dave the Diver at 8, Marvel Spider-Man 2 at 9, Lies of P at 10.
How many people have played and loved Sea of Stars? Because I haven't, so I'm just trying
That's
to...
the only one that
Kyle,
I'm a
me,
little
and
skeptical
Kelsey?
of.
I think it's
I
just us
started
three.
it and
Yeah.
I thought it was cool, but haven't continued it.
Like, does that land it above Hi-Fi Rush?
It's a great question.
It doesn't for me, for what it's worth, but that doesn't mean, like, I'm okay with it being one slot off from where I'd put it. I'm not gonna cry about that.
I'm curious to hear what Kyle says before I say what I think.
Sea of Stars versus Hi-Fi Rush.
Yeah.
I mean, it certainly is above Hi-Fi Rush for me. Sea of Stars. Sea of Stars is very high on my personal list. Yeah, I just adore it. Just the art, the world, everything. I mean, we've talked about it a little bit. Because I think I missed the beginning of this debate. Are you just sort of poking it? Is that what's?
Well, we're wondering if
poked a
everything
little.
other than the top 4 are in the right spot. And Sea of Stars
sure.
is the one that I am also, based on the group, it's like, is that number 5er?
I feel like Hi-Fi Rush or Resident Evil Remake could both go above that, just based on group temperature.
I kind of feel that way too. Yeah. Then again, I mean, as somebody who loves Hi-Fi Rush, what if it was Resident Evil 4 Remake, Hi-Fi Rush, Sea of Stars as 5, 6, 7? I'm just saying, like, everybody loves Resident Evil 4 Remake. Hi-Fi Rush, a lot of us love, but some people are not gaga over. And Sea of Stars is a very good game that 2 to 3 people loved.
What is the order you're proposing? RE4.
I'm suggesting, what if what if? Here, let me just do it, and then whatever happens.
It's funny that-
happens.
How does this look, guys?
Let's just
put
see
it
how
here
this
and see
looks.
what
Let's
it
just see how
looks
this
like,
looks.
you guys.
If it's number
It is-
5, Resident Evil 4 remake, number 6,
good.
Hi-Fi Rush.
Moving on.
I'm not saying nothing. We're not moving on
It is
until
so
everyone's
funny
happy.
that Ray Luaza points out RE4 climbed back to the spot that it was at the start of the episode. Which was never too high, but maybe it wasn't. I don't know.
it's good. It's good.
I'm fine. I'm fine with that. I'm much more interested in the top 4.
Whoa, Haley, how's that sit with you?
It feels very deja vu from last year. I can't really put my finger on it. I feel like we had the exact same conversation.
I love all 3 of these games. I've played all 3 of these games.
That's right.
Personally, I like Sea of Stars the most out of all 3, but I appreciate that they're all such high caliber games. It's going to be hard. We're being nitpicky right now. It's not like I'm like, clearly it's the winner. I'm like, this is tough. I wish more people played Sea
I
of
like
Stars.
RE4 moving up. RE4 is my number 2. I think Sea of Stars is my number 3.
Oh, okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
Sea of Stars is my number 5.
Oh, okay.
And it's just a matter of how do you compare such different genres? They're all so good.
What do you mean? It's a piece of cake. It's podcasting about games.
Resident
Everybody
Evil
loves it.
4, Hi-Fi Rush, and Sea of Stars are such 3 vastly different games doing different things. How do I go, 1, 2, 3? Like, it's so difficult. Especially, we haven't even gotten to the top 3. I'm going to explode when we start doing that.
I mean, there's a certain amount of me that I want to get to that. You know, like these games are in the top 10. Like, these are great places for it to be.
I could keep Sea of Stars here. And just recommend people don't let Sea of Stars pass you by. It's very, very good. And the story's great. And the final ending is very, very good. There's an ending and then there's a final ending. And the final ending is very, very good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Number 7 is a hell of an accomplishment for Sea of Stars.
Out of the 100 and something games we had, and then Poggers too. It's pretty high up.
Yep.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Above Poggers, wow.
Hey, Somebody had thoughts?
I was gonna say, can we all go pee?
Yes, we
I gotta
can.
go pee.
Yes, we can.
When did Hitman go down? Leo, did you see
When I
that?
came back, Zelda was at the top, and I just wanted to see how this would look.
I assume
know
that
what
was
happened.
Kyle
I
hanging
just
out
wanted
here
to try
by
this on
himself.
for size.
Alan Wake moved down
all
a
right,
little bit,
okay,
Soul moved up. I don't know. It just nature took hold.
Interesting. We took a bathroom break and things have shifted, but this top 4
This
seems
is why
pretty
Kyle
good.
wanted to use the bathroom before everybody else. He's like, I'll hold down the fort while everyone else.
Chat. Kyle did nothing. Kyle did not do it. Like, just believe
Okay.
chat.
All right.
Let's just see how it feels.
Sean says, let's just see how people feel about
I think this feels pretty good.
Good. All right, everybody.
Interesting.
it.
We have not talked about a couple of these games yet. Where do we start, y'all? Where do we start?
Well, we're down to the top 4 to clarify, right?
We are.
Yeah,
it's
so
Baldur's
did we
Gate
figure out
3.
the Sea of Stars thing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Baldur's Gate 3, Hitman Freelancer, Alan Wake 2, and then Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom are kind of the top 4 that it seems like we're juggling a bit.
I feel like we could start with something that Kelsey said that was just so true and so wise, and that was that all Baldur's Gate 3, Hitman Freelancer, and Zelda Tears of the Kingdom were all kind of games that gave everyone super unique experiences and gave them a creative freedom that let them play it however they wanted to and just gave unlimited fun times to everyone. And I feel like those are 3 great games.
Yeah, but then again, going by your logic, like we can't have all those clumped together. We should probably break it up by having like an Alan Wake 2.
No, we can
instead of,
clump.
like,
We can clump. Clumps are cool.
I do feel like that's the theme of this year, though, right? Like
Yeah.
almost everyone's favorite game is some flavor of like I had an awesome time anecdotally doing this emergent gameplay stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, except for Alan
me
Wake
and
2.
Haley.
Yeah.
And there's one game I think that's always been the best at that, but has never gotten its flowers.
And there's one game that came out and just redefined a genre that I just feel like we need to acknowledge.
We're acknowledging it.
Get into it.
Can we like no holds barred this, please? I would love if this was a no holds barred conversation.
What holds are you considering barring? Of course, this is no holds barred.
None.
let us have it, Haley. How are you feeling about this?
Oh no, I shouldn't have spoke. I cannot start. Can
She's
someone
holding
else start
bars.
before
She's
me?
holding bars.
You can't be like, can we all be really pissy here?
Okay. Haley's like, let's take the gloves off. Whoa. Where's this punch coming from?
I feel like
Let Sarah go.
I genuinely feel like the gaming industry needed a Baldur's Gate 3. This is like the first big hit that we've had in decades, okay? Baldur's Gate 3, when people think of 2023 in video games, what they think of coming out that was a big deal and will last forever, it's gonna be Baldur's Gate 3.
Yep.
It just is.
Yep.
And I just feel like we're not gonna see another Baldur's Gate 3 for quite a while. We're all gonna agree, we're all gonna talk about it, we're gonna see a bunch of like, they're trying to be Baldur's Gate 3. But Baldur's Gate 3 is definitely one of the most like, you know, not like once in a lifetime, but you get a few Baldur's Gate 3 in a lifetime.
I think you're totally
and like
right.
this is
true.
absolutely Divinity Original Sin. I was like, it can't get better than this. And then they were like Baldur's Gate 3 and I was like, it's better than Divinity Original Sin 2.
Yeah, it's what's better?
What's better?
Yeah.
I would say the revolutionary managing to take what makes D&D so great and putting it in a video game and making it accessible while still leaving you that agency that you get in D&D is just incredible. Like being able to customize your character, customize your playthroughs, that every time you play, you could have a completely different experience and you'll still be seeing new things. For a game that's like 160 hours, being able to do that is just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, fair to say, most flexible RPG ever made. I know it's a weird word to put with RPG, but it seems that way from everything I understand about Baldur's Gate. And just to be very clear where we're at, like I will not take an ounce of appreciation for Baldur's Gate 3 away from the people that love it.
You
like
hate it.
I
You
truly
hate it.
it's time to let the shtick die. I think this game is truly awesome. I am in awe of everything they did. Even if it's not clicking for me, I don't want it to be like, oh, it's dumb, it's bad. Like I can't lob a single ding at Baldur's Gate 3. I respect the hell out of it.
Everything I can say
anecdotes.
about Baldur's Gate is like so specific to me, right? It's like I can't. Does that make sense? Like if there's like a thing that is not clicking with me, I can point to it and define it as being like that's just something that I just personally am not into, and it's like I don't want. Yeah, like you, Ben. I don't want it to take away from everybody else when it's such a personal preference of how I absorb and play video games, you know? Yeah,
and Sarah, that idea of like, how did they do this? This is a once in a generation type of experience. Like, you know, I saw their presentation at GDC. Was it last year, year before? I forget. And you know, it was talking about the early access phase and like, is it worth it to put your game in early access? And they had all of Act 1 out there for years?
They were missing the Underdark.
Okay. But still,
and they were missing a little bit, but yeah, it was a lot of Act 1.
Yeah, and just the idea of like, all right, we're just going to incorporate all the feedback we can from the community, dial it down, and then they realize like, oh, sweet Jesus, if we want to finish the rest of the game at this scale, at this production level that we've kind of set as a standard for ourselves, it's going to be impossible. What have we done? And then just, they buckled down and did it, and I hope they're all doing okay over there because they seem to have pulled it off. Even if it seems like it's, you know, probably the buggiest out of all these the top 4, but other than that,
mean, like, you can't help that you know, some people don't have
Alan
great
Wake
PCs.
2 is the buggiest.
Alan Wake 2 probably is pretty
I did fall
I
through
had
the
to
floor in Alan
reinstall
Wake 2
Alan
quite a
Wake.
bit.
Yeah, that's true.
Is it time to just break Alan Wake's kneecaps and move him down to the fourth slot?
Let's if that's the Baldur's Gate 3 talk, I think we got a lot more to unpack here with Baldur's Gate 3 before we get to Alan Wake 2.
But what is our goal right now? Is it just
I want to get a feel for as a group where we're at for Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh, I love Baldur's Gate 3. It's my game of the year.
It is. Whoa.
Another game I haven't beaten.
Oh, surprise! Sleeper agent here.
Guys, are you not reading every single tweet I post? That one time on September 23rd? Yeah, which I have not updated in forever because that's, again, I'm slow rolling this. Yeah, I think it's just like, it is so incredible. I can appreciate story in games. I definitely don't need story from all of my games. The writing in this is so good. I'm a huge fan of, you know, visual novels, choice-based things. It was immediately clear this is better than anything I've ever encountered before, and that's including like some of the best titles, like, you know, like Life is Strange: True Colors is one that I lobbed up there a lot, and there's like a bunch of other examples. But everything about this game is good, and not just that, it really gets all of the juice out of each orange, and there are so many oranges. Even just from booting it up, I'm like, is it just me or is this Down by the River song one of the best things I've heard all year? I'm like, oh, is it just me or is it so fun to create these characters because they have like the customization just perfect where you're not going to obsessively try to make you, but you're going to try to make someone cool. And immediately I'm kind of thrown into the, hey, how do you want to role play this? The production value of the cutscenes is absolutely incredible. Best looking cutscenes I think I've ever seen in a video game. The writing is good everywhere. Every inch of the writing is delectable. I got this old floppy hat, and the description of the hat is whacked around more often than a clown in a tragedy. And that's like more amusing than that's more amusement I've gotten out of some games in their entirety. The dice roll is probably the most satisfying thing I've ever experienced in a game this year. They somehow make 8 radial wheels even on PS5 kind of manageable because you can sort of categorize them. The combat, I think the turn-based combat and the sort of system is super fun. It is slow, and I get maybe some people maybe finding that experience to be clunky, but for me, I take a long time playing a game like that. I strategize a lot, and it takes me a long time to come up with those strategies. So I personally don't feel like it's any different than any other tactics game. Like some tactics games are obviously easier and quicker to, pull off whatever you want to pull off, but they give you so many options. I'm a druid, and I forgot what else, but I can turn into a freaking giant spider, which is cool. Every NPC is interesting to talk to. All of them have something interesting to say, and they don't all look like they're on a Zoom call with a web camera in different angles, which I found extremely refreshing. Talking to animals is my favorite thing to do in this game. I'm freaking going on quests that rats basically gave me at this point. And even when they don't lead to gameplay, they're snippy and fun. Like, I experience, and this is more of a compliment to Baldur's Gate 3 than meant to be a diss to every other game, but there's more personality from the random birds who are collecting shiny things in a nest that doesn't matter than in some entirety of cast members.
I know the exact pigeon you're thinking
Yes!
about. That's how memorable this game is. I know the pigeon she's talking about.
Yeah, and it was great. And then you walk up and it's like, and literally there's so many, I think about the problematic nature of the game aside, I think a lot about Detroit Become Human and the way it would show you its narrative branching paths at the end of each section. I imagine this for this game, and my mind starts to melt because it is so detailed and everything matters in such an intriguing way. And I think when we talk about stakes in choice-based games, it's often, I don't know, whether I said I wanted to go to the movies or not, we still kind of went. So I didn't really care. I don't personally need, I think at the end of the day, with narrative design, to me, it's not so much that my choices need to matter every single step of the way, but they need to feel like there's a cohesive impact throughout. And for this, everything, you'll have one member who's a different race who, when they talk to somebody of that same race, they have a special dialogue where it's like, hey, as this part of the community, we both have this shared ground. Or, there was a moment in that same area, Haley, where the pigeon was, where it's there's an elevator and there's 2 ways. It's if you could turn into the animal, you can also talk to, there's all these weird little things for stuff that doesn't matter. And I think that's why, even though I haven't beaten the game, I'm far from it, I'm still in Act 1, it immediately is the most narratively impressive thing I've ever played, because I don't even really care what you do with the overarching story. I haven't, I'm not deep enough to have fallen in love and done all these other things, but just the moment to moment, it's so incredibly delicious. I'm going to eat off this game for forever. It's one of the best things I've ever played by a mile. So yeah, I love this game. My only ding is I don't really like the rest system. I know it's like a D&D thing or something, but the short rest, and then you got to and it costs supplies, and I'm just cheap. That's really more of a me thing, but I'm I'm worried that I'm going to, kind of back myself into a corner. Everyone says that I won't. And I get narratively, it's so that you can check in at the camp and get the next beat. But that's probably my only thing. Also, the freaking spells and perks you get, every single thing is good. It's you're at a really good restaurant and you're well, I know I'm going to keep coming back to the restaurant, but everything's so delicious. What do I want to order first? It's so thrilling.
I love the delicious ratio of drops to this discussion.
We're having a delicious year, Haley.
Yeah.
This is the game that murders Starfield for me, which I know isn't saying a lot to this group, but it falls at the center of the Venn diagram that is every taste that I have in games, and it knocked it out of the park for every single one.
Yeah.
A lot of the games this year hit like one or two things and it's like, man, I love the story in this, but the combat, is kind of whatever. I love the exploration in this, but the sense of rewards isn't that great. Like this one, it hit every single area and has just kept on giving for me. I also, to be fair, still in Act 1. I played 100 hours of it. This game will last forever, but it's the one that I also still want to keep going back to. And like Janet said, like the branching narratives, that's something I've become so jaded with in games because it's always like, we're going to give you 3 options. They're all basically going to funnel back into this one. And like just the first frickin' Druid's Grove that you come to, they skewer that thing with so many different options that completely like the sense of a branching narrative just disappears because there's so many different ways that it can go. And at that point, I'm just building my character. I'm making my decisions. I'm living with the consequences of those decisions in a way that you don't get from narrative games or role-playing games, even though that's the entire point of role-playing. The sense of rewards that you get from, and this was, again, my big knock against Tears of the Kingdom, and Starfield to some extent. I'll stop bringing Starfield up because no one cares about that game anymore. But just like the sense of getting some random item that works perfectly with a build, or that you get it and you're like, oh my God, this is so cool. I'm going to build my entire character around this thing. And it's just something like I bought from a freaking vendor. Like I found, on one character that I decided to pickpocket. Like those kind of like better sense of reward than anything I got out of Tears of the Kingdom, kind of like because everyththing matters, because it's all systems based, because I can build my characters in such creative and different ways. And the fact that you do that for every party member that comes into your crew. And it's like, well, I don't have to play this game 5 times because I'm never going to. I can just build out all these different characters and then go along with them and get super cool like backstories with them and feelings for these characters that I don't normally get from companions in video games. Like it is a once, in a lifetime type of game. That's great.
Yeah. And there's co-op throughout all this, which like talk about just multiplying the complexity. Mm-hmm. Like that's still
a little sideline.
Family game of the year if you have a really specific family.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people do.
And you can also play as any of the origin characters, like Karlach Asterion, and they all have their own dialogue for their own stories. So that's like 5 separate games in like by itself because they all have like special content.
Yeah, I know people praise Dragon Age Origins like for that same idea, but just that times 1,000 seems to be the consensus for Baldur's Gate 3.
You can also customize your dice, which is fun.
Customize your what?
Your dice. Like change the color and all that. And it's like, I don't know, it just adds that little like tabletop vibe. Even though I don't actually play D&D, again, I keep telling my story of slowly going through Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion to learn it. And I don't think you need to. I know that one criticism that gets lobbied against this game is like, well, isn't this just like D&D, but like in a game? It's like, yeah, but that's one, that's really hard to do, and 2, that's awesome. That's like awesome. I think and like you don't need to know anything about D&D to play it at all. Like I don't know anything about D&D, and it's still just a game that teaches you how to play it like any other game does.
There's a reason there have been so many video game RPGs that are based on D&D but haven't been able to do actual D&D in rules because it's just so wide open with what you could do in actual D&D, and this is the one that like actually pulled it off.
Again, like Ben, I don't want to take anything away from this, but like I really tried to start playing this game, and I felt like my lack of knowledge about D&D basically prevented me from getting into it. Like I found it completely overwhelming at the beginning, and so I hear the game that you're describing sounds like the best game ever made, but like I did bounce off of it because I found the initial hump to like understanding how to move and operate in that world just pretty overwhelming.
Yeah, and again, I don't think this should detract from it, but there are 5 of us that are in that camp of bouncing off it. Kelsey, did you play it?
Yeah, and I'm in that same camp, and I haven't given up on it yet because I really just hearing people talk about it, and especially honestly, Janet, your passion for this get me even more excited just because I think you are also coming into this as a D&D newbie. And so like, I feel like if you can do it, then that means it can be accessible to me too. And I haven't hit that stride yet, and I would like to. So it's tough because I think everyone who played Baldur's Gate 3 likes it much more than, or everyone who played and liked Baldur's Gate 3 likes it more than anything else, which is an interesting spot for it to be. And I think the rest of us have a slightly mixed number one, right?
Yeah. Haley, where are you at these days for Baldur's Gate?
Baldur's Gate changed the way I think about my taste in games, like completely. Like this game's changed how I think about what I might like in the best possible way. Because I think we talked about this before, and I think it's funny that like I feel like I time traveled in that I learned about this game the day before it came out, and I was like, oh, like my partner was like, I might buy Baldur's Gate 3. I was like, what is that? Like I just didn't even know what it was. It was coming out the next day. And then he showed me a trailer. It's like, I think I might try. I don't know what about my brain said, try a CRPG, Haley. Because I don't know, but something about it, I was like, this looks kind of interesting. Maybe I'll try. And I definitely had that hump like you did, Jacob, where I was like, what's a druid? What's a tiefling? Oh my God. Oh, what's a bonus action? Oh, cantrip. Like I got a little bit nervous. And then as soon as I got over that hump, this game, like, I can't, like, we've already sung its praises like quite a lot, so I won't go too long, but it's just the best game. Like, oh my gosh, it's so much effort put into a game that, like Sarah was saying, we won't see until maybe Larian makes another game. Like, because they just seem like the only studio that's putting this much effort into every single thing has more than one thing that then connects it to another thing and it expounds from there. Like I'm someone who likes to figure out what actually affects what in a game, to the point that it kind of sometimes messes up how I play games. Like playing Telltale, for example, which is not a fair comparison, but just hear me out for 2 seconds. Like playing The Wolf Among Us, I'm like, okay, if I say no here, what actually happens? Like my brain always wants to figure that out and like understand what are the branches, figuring it out, like understanding it. I can't do that with this game because it is so detailed and so specifically crafted that I might talk to a zombie in Act 1, and then Act 3, I have a 5-hour mission about him. What? Like, how is that happening?
Is that really a thing in the game, or?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sarah,
I think I just talked to him, actually. People were like, go into this room.
Yeah, so I also could have killed him and not had that 5-hour storyline. But what? Like, in my playthrough I'm doing right now, well, I'm done it now, but I was trying to do everything. Like, I was trying to make sure that every side quest I could possibly play, I got to play, and that made my Act 3 like the most stacked Act 3 of all time. Like, literally, I got to Baldur's Gate and there was 70 markers everywhere, and I did them all, and they were all amazing. It wasn't like, oh, this one's just like go out and find 5 birds and come back and tell the dude you found 5 birds, and then he's like, thanks. It's like, my daughter's been kidnapped, and you go to the bar and this person's like, I think I saw a kid, and you go over here. It's like, now I don't want to spoil them because they're so good. It's like, it reminds me of how much I love the Witcher 3 side quest, but those aren't even close to how good these ones are. And those used to be my favorite side quests of all time. These ones are 1,000 times better than those. Easy. Like, so if you like The Witcher 3 and you're a little bit nervous about D&D, I'm also a D&D newbie. I've never played D&D. I've always wanted to, but I could never scrounge up a friend group. That makes me sound really lame. But I could never scrounge up a friend group to play it, and I've always wanted to try. And this let me play D&D by myself, and I'm so excited that they did it so perfect because I literally got to play D&D by myself, and it's the perfect experience. And the characters are amazing, the voice acting's amazing, the story's amazing, the gameplay's amazing, the detail's amazing. Like, everything I could point to is I don't really have a ding for this game. Like, I'm trying to think of something to ding it, and I don't really have one. I love everything about it.
To kind of expand on what y'all brought up, even though y'all also said, like, oh, don't worry about my complaint, it doesn't count, dude. Like, I feel like that's a little silly. Like, I do think, as much as I find it to be generally accessible, it can be a little bit of a hurdle in specifically the way actions and turns are, like, gone. Like, I'm not gonna lie and pretend like when I streamed this game and had chat helping me, like that did not teach me a lot about the game, you know? I don't think you need to do that to be able to play it, but I do think
you can fail.
Depending on your like how you learn, you know, your sensibilities as a player, there is a little bit of a hurdle to like, okay, let me take a step back and try to really see what's going on, or why am I failing, or what are these like I think they could have maybe done a little bit more in spelling out for you, you know, especially because I mentioned at one point during the break that my boyfriend's playing Final Fantasy VII Remake, and just even the language of introducing characters of like, hey, this character is kind of meant for this thing. Like I think it could have a few of those rails a little bit more, just to really give you a better sense of how to navigate the combat a little bit more. That being said, I do still stand by that it is generally something you can get into, but I'm not going to lie to you and pretend like I didn't also get like some ancillary help and that didn't help me. I did like the game even before that, but it can be, depending on your sensibilities, outside info might be helpful, and maybe some of that could have been baked in. So that you wouldn't have to go
I had to
outside.
supplement with YouTube a lot for sure. Like I had to go watch like probably 5 or 10 hours of YouTube on just like D&D background, or like how to play Baldur's Gate 3 for dummies, stupid idiots, like, and just like learn it. And then once I was like, okay, I can, because another thing is like Shadowheart died in front of me. And when I first started playing, I was like, is she gone? Like, you like don't know the rules, right? You're like, you don't know what a scroll of Revivify is and stuff, like you don't know. So I was like, I guess I should reload my save. I don't want to not ever play with Shadowheart. So you kind of have to like learn those rules. It's like, Shadowheart's not gone. You can bring back Shadowheart, don't worry. And like, once you have those comfortabilities with like, okay, Shadowheart died, that's fine. I'll get a scroll and I'll bring her back and we'll keep going. And you get comfortable with like how the world works. And then you're not as like precious with, I feel like I don't know what's happening. It's like, I'm gonna see if this lightning thing works, and you do it and it has like 0 damage, and you're like, it didn't work. And you just like keep going from there.
I do think
you have to get over a hump.
Once you kind of get into understanding a very, very simplistic base, the fun of the combat really opens up, where you are starting to wonder, okay, well then, you know, if I can turn into a spider, that means I can web stuff. And when I web stuff, that means it's flammable. So then if I take this and and then you kind of really start, and to me, that's when the game really does start to sing as you get more into that mindset. But yeah, there can be a curve. Outside info could help. And I do kind of hate when games sort of like say, like, oh, just figure it out. You know, when you do have to go outside, I think that is a negative, but that's
gamers hate going outside.
But then when I put those hours
honestly,
in,
I haven't gone in weeks.
My favorite game, like one of my favorite games I've ever played in my
I
life.
Don't think,
so it was worth it.
And I don't feel like it requires as much as other games necessarily. I feel like I got, like, maybe I will hit that point that you got to, Haley, where I'm like deep in the YouTube weeds, but I feel like a quick few questions to my chat or to my partner who's been playing solved a lot of what my questions were. Like, you know, but I think that is worth acknowledging, that it is a little bit clunkier to pick up than, you know, it's a slow burn. It's like, okay, get ready to read and then think and then reread. And, you know, there's a little bit of that, I think, at least in the beginning.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sarah, do we have stuff that we haven't hit on yet that is flowing in your heart?
No, I mean, I guess as someone who like has been championing this game from like early access, I'm gonna cry. It's just been like so nice seeing like other people like this game, because like I saw a lot in this game and it meant a lot to me. So just seeing you guys talk about it makes me so happy.
So cute. You're gonna make me cry because I cry when other people cry, like unironically. That's so nice. Anyways,
thank you.
So who wants to go next on their
game?
All right. Yeah, I don't know. I guess if we're done with Baldur's Gate for now, do we want to talk about... I feel like Alan Wake 2 is the only one of the top 4 we haven't really discussed today.
Yeah, I am curious to hear where Haley's at specifically with this, because last I heard it in the deepest dive, she's like, sorry, Baldur's Gate, kicking you to the curb for Alan Wake being my primary mama.
I'm going Ben Hansen mode, she said.
No going back! Where are you at, Haley?
This is really hard because, to be honest, Baldur's Gate and Alan Wake are now in my top 5 games of all time. Yeah. Like, it's not like it's this year. Like, those 2 games are 2 of my favorite games, so it sucks that they're happening at the same time. And I've literally, like, thought about this for weeks. Like, I had to really say, because how do you compare a linear horror game...
You can't, Haley, you can't.
Meta-narrative with Dancing Sam Lake to Baldur's Gate D&D open. Like, how do I compare those 2 things? And I think ultimately where I landed was I kind of have like a heart and like head game of the year, and like my head game of the year is Baldur's Gate 3. That game is better than Alan Wake. I know that. Like that it is, because it's so much more than this, you know, what I love about Alan Wake. It's doing more. It's completely taken over how I approach games now, and I love it so much. But my heart just loves Alan Wake 2 so much. And if I hear a second of Herald of Darkness, I'm like, I love Alan Wake. Like, of course, it's my favorite. I love it. But like, that's kind of where I'm at. So like in my heart of hearts, like I want to just say they're both my game of the year, but I understand people don't like that. So if I had to pick one, I would say I think Baldur's Gate is above Alan Wake for me.
You flipped. Okay.
Now, like I love Alan Wake, but I know Baldur's Gate 3 is a game I'm gonna be thinking about till I'm an old wrinkled lady. Like as much as I love Alan Wake 2. And that's not to say like I don't like, I'm so excited to see what Remedy follows up. I can't wait for Control 2. I feel like they're gonna go crazy on Control 2, and I can't wait to see. And I'm still the biggest nerd for it. But I love them both, so I just cannot compare them. But for the purposes of our discussions, and I need to, I gotta put Baldur's Gate above it. Like that game does so much, and I'm so impressed by it, and it's changed the way I think about games and what I like.
Yeah,
I have to give it that.
Alan Wake 2, though, we should unpack what's sweet about this game. Jacob, you've been biting your tongue during that Baldur's Gate discussion, but how you feel about this?
Man, it's hard to do these at the end of a 4-hour podcast. And Alan Wake 2 is the most exciting I have found a AAA game in a long time. Really, what Alan Wake 2 is to me is like a kind of an indication that like stories do not need to be the things that we have decided AAA game stories are, you know, and specifically, I think what's so exciting about it is how close it at first seems to The Last of Us or God of War or Uncharted or, you know, like any of these other
Resident Evil 4,
prestige Resident Evil, like prestige third person over the shoulder photorealistic graphics games. And then just kind of like seeing the level of consideration and introspection that game does. You know, I have thought a lot. Silent Hill 2 is one of my favorite games of all time. And whenever I think about Silent Hill 2, which is a game where like every single piece of it is like adding to the larger whole, I'm like, how is it possible that we don't have more games like that? Like, is it so impossible to make a game where like every piece of its like formula feeds back into this like holistic thing that the game is saying, and you can kind of think about it for years and still have things to kind of consider with it? And I think that Alan Wake is that, not in a lore sense, not in a like complex backstory sense, but in like the idea of a literary work that is rich with metaphor and analogy and kind of like, you know, thinking about itself as a text and what it means to operate as art and what art means for the people who make it and what art means for the people who it's about and all of that. So like, you know, it's almost something that exists not quite as a game for me, because the things that I find so exciting about Alan Wake 2 is kind of like what it is versus how I mean, it's like, because I should say, it's like I found the combat so frustrating in that game that I like kept wondering if my game was glitched, that I was like playing like a broken version of it, because I could not imagine that like the experience I was having with fighting enemies was the intended way that you were supposed to fight enemies.
And do you think it was glitched, by the way?
No, I don't. I think that the combat in the game just sucks. Like, you know, and I know other people haven't had that experience, and it's baffling to me that I had such a different feeling than everyone else. So it's like, you know, I don't want to fight for it over Baldur's Gate 3 because like I think that what it is to me is very special, but it's like it's almost special in a way that feels separate from like how I experience a good video game, and more this in a very Alan Wake 2 sense, like a meta look at like what we're all doing here is what I like about it most.
On Earth or with games? What do you mean?
Yeah,
Both. Okay.
I mean, it's like I am a writer, quote unquote, and it's like that is a game about writing and thinking about writing and thinking about like what writing about things does to you. And so it's it's like I don't know, I'm a sucker for it.
Yeah, I don't want to make it too much like, all right, Jacob, you're on an island with Alan Wake 2. A lot of us like Alan Wake 2 a whole lot. I don't want to make it just adore Leo.
Leo liked the gameplay.
I got a clip. I've got to post somewhere of me doing awesome stuff in the combat. I was feeling it.
It's the best.
Yeah, it's really special game. It's like my number 3, right? I think
it's number 2.
Yeah, I've seconded Jacob on all the cool story stuff. It is like, and it's cool in a way that's not trying to be a movie. It's like best as the game that it is.
Yeah, just something to chew on for a while. But I think that can kind of also throw people off every once in a while. We're like, what do you mean? Everything isn't rolled out in a certain way and then tied up in a neat bow at the end. It's like, no, it's just going to be, a chunky work of art for you to stew on for a while. That's what Alan Wake 2 is ultimately. And it's a work of art that's about appreciating works of art, I guess.
Yeah, but not in like, it's not simply a like, you know what, art's really good. And like, we all need to, like it is such a nuanced look at like, the damage that art can do to both its creators and subjects. I think the fact that Alan Wake himself is like kind of a piece of is such an important part of the game, and another way that it relates to Silent Hill 2. But it's like, it would suck if this game about like game written by writers about being a writer was like, man, writers are so cool and important. And like, that's not what the game is about. And like, that's I feel like another place where it kind of separates from the kind of like Stephen Kinginess is like it's not this like masturbatory look at like how cool creating art is. It's like, really much more and much more detailed than that.
It like makes fun of that mindset. It actively pokes at that and says, isn't that silly? Let's move on from that and think about other things.
Yeah, and pokes fun at that as a thing to pursue.
Yeah.
From the writer's perspective.
I liked what you said, Leo, is like it's not trying to be a movie. So often games that we view as avant-garde are just trying to take movie tropes and insert them into video games. And while that can work, I'm not going to say like cutscenes that have really good pacing that like movies or something don't hit different. This game works really hard to be like, what can gameplay do with those other types of media? Not just movies, but TV and dancing and choreography and live action, like acting and all these things. And it's like, how do games work with those other types of media? That's what I thought the first Alan Wake 1 did. And then Alan Wake 2 just took that and ran with it like crazy, is where can we cross over these different types of media? Where's the best place to cross over? And where do games thrive and they can do things with interactivity that other types of media can't do? And that's what Alan Wake 2 tries to play with, and they do it masterfully. Like, I always, like, as I was playing it, I was like, is this too much? And every time I would question myself that thought, like, are they being too muddled? Is it too much? Is it getting too confusing? I was like, no, it's not. I get it. I know what they're trying to do, and they're doing it really well, and they're doing it purposefully. I know they had 10 million meetings to discuss every single plot point of this. It's not like they're just throwing stuff into the nether and hoping it lands. Like, they know what they're doing, and they did a perfect job at it. And it hits so well. And I know a lot of people don't like the ending. I think the ending is one of my favorite game endings of all time. It's perfect.
Whoa! Did you check out the New Game Plus ending, by the way?
I don't like the new Plus ending.
Oh, whoa!
Wait, can we spoiler games up the New Game Plus ending? Because I don't want to play it
yet.
I don't want to play it, but I want to hear about it.
Jacob, is it okay?
Sure.
Okay, spoilers for Alan Wake 2's New Game Plus ending. You can check out the time codes if you want to dodge it. Haley, I'll let you, since you seem to be much more passionate about it.
I mean, I think what I loved about, I'll let leave chat before I say this, because, you can also, I think, YouTube it. You do not have to replay this entire game. It's very, like, not that much extra content.
Yeah.
It's really just the ending. Alan has some additional, like, narrative, like, discussion over top of the final cutscene when Scratch comes in and all that. And, Scratch goes into Alan. I love it. He goes, "Come home. Come on, come home." It's like my favorite thing ever. And then he gets shot. I really loved the people call it unsatisfying, but Saga calls her daughter and then we don't get to hear whether Logan picks up or not. So the question is this still happening? Are we out of the dark place? Are we ascending? Are we descending? It's a loop, it's a spiral, blah, blah, blah. So in the final version, Logan picks up and she hears Logan and she talks to Logan.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so
well, I feel
Logan
some
says-
satisfaction now.
So
The
okay,
thing
there
I
you
said
go,
on the
Sarah.
Demon's Dive would never happen in a million years. Cool.
Yeah, so Logan says, Mom, I just had the worst nightmare. Please come home. And Saga says, don't worry, honey, I'm coming. And Alan has the bright light where the shot hit him in the head. He comes back, goes, and instead of saying loop is a spiral, he says, like, I can't remember. It's not as catchy. It's not like purposeful and like fun like that line. It's just something
Control 2 coming 2025.
No, I mean he says something along the lines of like, I can
does he
understand
say?
both worlds. I now understand there's more than two worlds.
There's more than two worlds, blah, blah, blah. He's essentially saying, okay, I'm ascending now. We're getting confirmation that and also Alice kind of is there. And she's like, you've done it, babe. Oh, babe. And then
Wait, Alice is there?
Her like vision.
in the live action, like layering way.
She
She's not
doesn't
actually
like
in the
also
room.
barge to the
that
door like
sounds bad,
Kramer.
but it wasn't part of the original ending, so I'm not.
I don't
Mind
like
canon.
it. I really don't like it, actually. I think it takes away from the ending of the, like, some people are like, oh, I just want to hear whether Logans are there or not. I'm like, that's the point. We have to not know, though. We have to not know. Because then that's how we're learning about this world. And we got the loop as a spiral. It's a spiral, not a loop kind of thing, because we're learning how the dark place works. That's what the whole game was trying to do, was teach us how does this world work that we're in, and it shoved iconography at us every 5 seconds. Like, made me feel so stupid once they gave me that line. I was like, of course, oh my gosh.
No.
But I don't like
disappointing.
I don't like that they solved it, quote, or whatever.
Kyle, were you gonna say something?
Oh, hang on real quick. Spoilers over for Alan Wake 2?
Oh yeah.
Spoilers over.
Okay. Sealed. Spoilers over.
That means spoilers over.
Everybody knows the sign language for spoilers over.
No, I don't need to say anything about Alan Wake.
Kyle!
I mean, look, I love Remedy. I love Alan Wake. Alan Wake 2 ended up being quite underwhelming for me.
Yeah, that's something to say.
But I don't know. It just
He doesn't wanna be
I'm
that
at that
guy.
point where I don't want to add, like, this is the like hype everything up. I don't want to like come in negative on Alan Wake 2.
I mean,
really. But
when we
it's
talk-
just there's a lot of stuff I love about that game, and there's a lot of stuff that I really just like didn't work for me.
I said the combat was so bad I thought my game was literally broken. Like you
game
I mean,
there was points in my game where it didn't load the puzzles in, so I had to restart my game in order to see how to solve a puzzle.
Yeah, all
that's
of-
Had to
so
reinstall.
stupid.
70% of my cutscenes.
The thing that
on
I was going to say
Xbox-
earlier was that you guys were talking about how it is not pretentious about writers, right? And I was going to interject a joke that they certainly are very proud of their history of video games, which is another thing that didn't really click with me, is that they were spreading their tendrils into so many of their other games in a way that I was like, hi, I would like to focus on Alan Wake here, please. I don't need the Federal Bureau of Control to sort of muddy things up, but yeah.
No, I do-
Hey,
I
good
do
game,
think
though.
It is.
A great number 4, I think.
I mean, it is valid though, Kyle. We talked about at the start of the debates. Like disappointment can drag stuff down. It is if it is your cup of tea, and the fact that like you loved Alan Wake, you love Remedy, and you're disappointed
It
by
should be
is-
my cup of tea, and it usually is my cup of tea, and I will eagerly drink that tea for every Remedy game. This has not turned me away from Remedy in any way. This is just one that didn't really click with me, which is like good. Like that, that's a good. Like understanding to have of that developer. It's like they're not flawless for me. I like some things aren't going to work, and I want them to be able to do that. I don't want them to go out of their way to make sure, they're making these like flawless games that everybody loves. Like I'd rather them try something different that doesn't necessarily work for some, but does work for others.
I've got a big cup of Crossfire XT for you here, Kyle. If you want to just open your mouth.
I played Crossfire.
I want to say, as the biggest, I think probably the biggest Alan Wake booster on this podcast, I would be proud to have it at number 4. My favorite story of the year, I think like this is a ranking of video games, and like I am totally happy with seeing it at the number 4 spot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I think it should be 3.
okay. Now we're getting there. No, I mean, Leo, you mentioned it during the deepest dive, to paraphrase you, back to you, of just there are sequences in Alan Wake 2 where it's frustrating to be like, why aren't other developers trying like this? This is cool shit, and I wish other developers would try to make cool shit like this. So I don't want to gloss over just how cool some of these sequences are in Alan Wake 2.
Fun ride, effortlessly finished, effortlessly made it all the way through, which is so rare for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it in the deepest dive, but just the weird little moments in that game of like just the melding between worlds where you're playing as Saga and you start to see Alan's world start to bleed in, and it's just like pushing and pulling back and forth. Obviously the live action integration is bananas cool throughout the entire thing, crawling through a cave and having live action videos on the end of the whole thing. Or I know it's a weird detail that I'm obsessed with, but having the live action Alice projected on the wall, and then you can like walk in front of that and having a live action video projected onto your character as you're roaming around in a video game. It's just awesome. Like by far the best like interaction with live action in a video game of all time. I know that's a weird criteria.
Anytime a game does that now, we're going to be like, it reminds me of Alan Wake until the end of time. Like, because they did it so well, like Control did it too. Yeah. I remember someone commented in Deep Dive, I was like, they did it so well right off the bat. Like, Control did it first. I was like, I know Control did it first.
No, the control stuff
this is
cheesy.
So much better.
Yeah.
This is like very elevated version of Control's implementation of like live action stuff. It's amazing. I want to hear Janet's opinion on Alan Wake 2 before we move on, if we could.
Yeah, this is another game that I have not beaten yet. And I just didn't finish the best games of the year. I'm like, it's run out of time. The walls are closing in. I really like this game a lot. I think it's the most interesting game of the year. Yeah. I kind of agree with a lot of it's not exactly in terms of being a game, like it's not my highest ranked for the year. I think because of a lot of the things you guys said. It's my number 3, so it's pretty high.
Oh, wow, that's high.
Whoa.
Yeah, but I mean, it's pretty high. It's really good. It is really, really enjoyable. And I actually like the gameplay generally. I definitely see where y'all are coming from, especially now picking it up again and being Alan. It sucks to be Alan, man. He goes down with like 2 hits. And I'm like,
he's spongy.
Dude, and then also like it's rough because I was too busy playing Bayonetta. Exactly. That's what was eating up all my time. That's a little rough around the edges, but I like actually a lot of the more traditional game aspects of this game. I enjoy the roaming around the woods and finding the lunch boxes. I like finding the stupid words of power that are just very video game telegraphed with giant neon arrows pointing to it.
Word of gun.
Exactly. Yeah, word of stuff.
Stupidest thing ever.
It is stupid, and I get if people don't like it because it is a little dumb, but I really like the upgrades they provide. I think they maybe, in part ease up some of the mechanical issues that you might end up encountering where I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I really get to lean into my play style with this. And it does the thing that I always say that I come to horror games kind of for like a cozy vibe, which is funny because it's like they're terrifying. But a lot of this game is just like people, especially when you're Saga, okay, everything's died down. You're just walking around looking at stuff. And the stuff's great to look at. I think the world is so thoughtfully designed and intriguing to examine. Every inch of it is like something fun to take in, which I regret saying immediately because I feel like it sounds so bad out of context. Please don't clip this out.
You're good. You're good.
But in general, like the environmental design is very cool. But I do think it's a game that has a bit of friction to enjoy, I think, what it has to offer. But yeah, certainly it is really special. And it's kind of, in a way, the opposite of my Marvel Spider-Man gripe, where, yeah, sure, there's stuff that's wrong with it, but I think the highs are so high that I'm like, this kind of ends up evening out for me. I think it's a really special and different experience. And frankly, the only reason I don't think I finished it, and this pretty much never happens to me with like review cycles of games, but this game came in so late for me right before embargo, and I really want to be able to talk about it. I played it so much, I just was exhausted, and I really had to stop playing it, so I just haven't really gone back to it in a big way. I also think I kind of have to be in a certain mood to sit and spend time because I don't want to lose track, and just frankly, I haven't been willing to will myself to play it, which I'm sure some people will ring as like a ding against the game in a way, and maybe it is. But personally, I just feel like
it's not a ding to not want to play a game.
Maybe
that's a ding. That's a ding.
I don't have a comment on whether or not, if you want to psychoanalyze why I didn't finish Alan Wake 2, you can. But yeah, that's pretty much my reason for why I haven't seen it.
Accepted.
Higher than I thought you were going to put it, though.
That is higher than I thought. That is surprising. For me, I really love Alan Wake too. And again, it's a matter of, hey, the highs are high. But when I keep thinking about it, I always just think of like, yeah, but I just remember flipping through those worlds as Alan and running through those tunnels and like in the subway. I just remember a lot of frustration, and I'm very bad at playing games, to be fair, but it was just a lot of like, all right, I swap into this world now as Alan. Okay, anything here? Okay, I guess I got to run over here and try this over here. I just felt frustrated with just basic navigating the world. And when you add to that, it's a world that's constantly changing, and on top of that, it's a world that you can change between the light bulb and then swapping. It's just there's a lot of variability.
And you have to be there to change it. It's a little cumbersome, I think.
Yeah.
But I think it's meaningfully cumbersome, which is more than I can say for usually when a game is cumbersome. Like, I think there's purpose behind it.
Yeah.
But it does make it a little less enjoyable to play at times.
Yep. I think
it's still really interesting to look at.
It's a good friction game. It's the opposite of what I have to say about Spider-Man 2.
Yes.
Is like, Spider-Man 2 is fun every 30 seconds. Alan Wake, I would go even minutes without having fun. But like, I appreciated that more.
Here's a question for the group. Hitman Freelancer.
A great number 3. Perfect number 3.
How much weight does a game have if it's somebody's number one game of all time and they said it'll never be dethroned? I don't think in the history of MinnMax's 210s have we ever even had somebody say this is my number one game of all time.
That has some weight to it.
I mean, nobody think that about Baldur's Gate 3?
Yeah, I feel like
I don't know.
I feel that way,
Tears of the
but then again,
Kingdom.
it's like until the next Baldur's Gate 3 comes out.
I could have sworn last time we talked about it on the podcast, Sarah, you said you liked Elden Ring more than Baldur's Gate.
No, I didn't.
I'm pretty sure on the podcast you said that.
I like Baldur's Gate
no way of
more than
knowing.
Elden Ring.
Okay. All right. Well, there it is.
Why would I say that? That doesn't sound like me.
I don't know. I could have sworn at some point you said that.
Chad has pointed out that this is meaningless, but Larian Studios has talked about Hitman as an influence for their.
Oh, okay.
So therefore,
and that's again, I'm not saying I've
So
led with it's
basically,
meaningless.
Leo should have liked Baldur's Gate 3, or he should have played it more. And maybe
What
that
I'm
would have
gonna
been his
say
favorite
is-
game of all time.
It's going to be very nice for you all to keep seeing games inspired by Baldur's Gate 3. And I don't think Hitman Freelancer is going to inspire anyone or anything. But through a roundabout back way, games will be more like
It all
Hitman because
comes
of
back to
Baldur's Gate
Hitman.
3. And I'm grateful
There
to
you
it.
go.
I wonder if anyone at Larian was inspired by Zelda.
it probably hasn't come up.
We have no way of knowing.
Okay, hang on. Just to be clear, for this list, I mean, based on Jacob and Haley, I know you said no, but I'm just curious how we're feeling. Is Alan Wake moving to 4?
I think
Move
so.
it. Move it there, Ben.
Okay. And Jeffem, you seem pleased with that
Really shaking her
decision.
head.
Yeah, I was another one who was very mixed on Alan Wake. I'm sure everyone remembers from the 12 hours that we talked about it. I am happy. I'm very happy I played it. It was a game that I felt like seeing through to the end. I do find all of the storytelling stuff interesting. But the top we're talking about the top of the top games that I've had multiple games that would be the number one game for me in any other year. And it feels like Alan Wake 2 at this point has the most has enough criticism to take it down to the fourth spot,
exactly.
which is still great.
Fourth spot in the best year of games.
Right.
Ever.
Yes.
100%. Yep.
Yeah.
As a group, how's everybody feeling about Hitman Freelancer versus Zelda? Personally,
Zelda.
Hey, whoa, sorry, what was that?
Yeah, do you want to take a proper vote here, or
I mean, sure.
vote?
I mean, it's not deciding, but just to get lay of the land.
it's kind of unfair, right? Because like
We haven't done
a
a
lot of
group
us haven't
yet.
played Freelancer. Yeah,
Wait, what was
Yeah.
Haley going to say about Hitman over Zelda, though?
Hitman over Zelda.
Hitman over Zelda.
Okay.
I think that was it.
Okay, yeah. Who here thinks Zelda should be above Hitman Freelancer on this list? Based on just to be clear, not in a matter of like your personal take. Like I haven't played Hitman Freelancer, but just based on the discussion on the podcast today.
So what do I think you think we would think?
What do you
say?
think?
Like,
What do you?
I feel like that's a silly question.
You're the thermometer reading the passion in the room for these games.
Yeah, I still like.
Who thinks Zelda should be above Hitman Freelancer?
I admire the sort of the innovative tools that it integrated into this world, and that's so Zelda for me.
I mean, I think what you're asking me is like, which had the more impassioned speech. And I think Leo ate everybody up for every single game.
100%.
I mean, I think if we're basing on speech, like put him at number one. Like
reaction,
I think
I already liked the game.
I think Leo's opinion and like the take that he threw out was like incredibly well said and also funny, which Leo, you're so good at like being smart and funny at the same time. But if you're asking me like, did he come with more heat than the Zelda people? Yes. But if you're asking me like which one I think should be higher, it's Zelda, which of course my bias is that I haven't played Hitman. But Zelda and Baldur's Gate 3 are the best games, in my opinion, ever made of all time. Like those, they're like right up there. And I don't know, you know, again, if I played Hitman, would it be the three of them clustered? Maybe, but I have to just, if I'm going off my opinion, that's my opinion. But if I'm going off of who made a better argument, I think Leo made a better argument.
Janet, I am exactly in the same camp, yeah.
Leo's description of Hitman is like why I love games, which seems insane to say over a game that I loved.
Yeah.
But like I really it's hard for me to not imagine being there with you if I had spent the amount of time on Hitman that you have. And like I have spent that amount of time on Zelda, and like I think it's brilliant, but like I still rank your experience over in that way.
I also think Kyle's the biggest Zelda fan here, and he hasn't said much about Tears of the Kingdom, which I don't know if you want to or if
I mean,
450 and you're like over it. Like I don't know.
No, I talked about. I mean, the thing is, it's one of those situations where Ben said a lot of the things that I feel strongly about. I mean, like truly Ascension and Ultra Hand, I think are just these like incredible mechanics that like. In the same way you guys talk about Baldur's Gate of like, this is changing how I feel about games and what I think. Like, I went into, a lot of us went into Tears of Kingdom like really not sure what to expect, and to come out on the other side with this tool that just completely changes the way I interact with my favorite thing in video games, which is solving puzzles. Place me in a room and have me solve a puzzle is my favorite thing to do in a video game, and to do it in such a way that I have never done before, and the way it feels as an extension of Link. Like that's the other thing that I just adore is like that game is so good at making me feel like I'm just always in full control of the action that I'm doing, right? Even the simple act of like standing on a flying platform and controlling that by moving Link, there is so little separation between me and Link in that game, and that's just an element of video games that I adore. You know, like that's one of the reasons I struggle with Baldur's Gate. I don't want to see dice, I don't want to see menus, I don't want to think about story options. I just want to be in the world, and Tears of the Kingdom does that near flawlessly for me. Yeah. I also just, and it's like, I guess you could call it bias. I think that's probably fair, but like I just love being in the world of Hyrule. I love hanging out with those people. I loved re-exploring that world and seeing what had happened in the years that I haven't been there. You know, like it was like going home after you'd spent time in college or something, and just seeing like what has changed in this world, and like I adored it for that.
That's
reason.
such a good comparison. That's totally what it felt like.
Yeah.
Kelsey,
Also,
a very
think
special game for me, for sure.
I think this actually helps rather than hurts. Like, I don't actually really care about Hyrule all that much, and that didn't matter at all because I thought the tools in that game were so good and so strong that, I don't have that much of an attachment to any of the characters or any of the places or anything. I've played some Zelda games, enough of them, but that, like, I don't even, the things like that we've talked about, like the story and the place and all of that stuff, like, I don't even care about those things because the rest of it is so good.
Kelsey, where is Tears of the Kingdom at on your personal list?
I think it's going to be number 1.
Yeah.
It's tough. Like I was completely obsessed with that game and playing just as many hours as I possibly could, all day, every day when it came out. And I think that's the sign of a really, really good game. Like, obviously, story payoff and all of that stuff narratively in Xenoblade, way bigger deal for me. But it just in terms of like, I really need to keep spending time in this world and just playing around. And I mean, I think you described it as a big toy box or a big, something along, it's a big toy. Like, yeah. And it was a really fun toy to play with. And I was super into it.
Yeah, I think I've got so much respect for Tears of the Kingdom. I did not try to bring it down at all, but I feel so similarly about Hitman of that feeling of this is my happy place when I boot it up. It's like a level. It's like comforting, meditative almost.
Well, I mean, that's what makes this so difficult is I think it's just like everyone's like, I loved playing with my toy so much. This is a life-changing toy. And we're all basically just saying the same thing, but about like 3 different games.
I know.
Yeah. The only thing I can hang my hat on is
angle.
Right. The only thing I can hang my hat on is like, I think the friction of freelancer necessitating a density of creative choices, I think, is a really meaningful difference as far as fun per minute.
Okay,
and there's
Hemingway. Sheesh.
There's one other thing I want to say about it. Well, I could fill these full 8 hours of discussions just me talking about this. But there's one objective I had was to knock out guards with concussion explosives. There's a rule in Hitman where if there's 2 doors between a NPC and any other NPC, they can't hear anything. So a door and a room and a door, if they're on opposite sides of that, any noise is fine. And knowing that rule, I found 2 guards in their little break room in New York watching TV together, watching soccer. And they're both sitting there enjoying their TV. And I'm like, okay, I have a concussion explosive. It's a rubber duck. And I realized that the meta best way to play this is to walk up, place the duck on the table. They go, what? Look at the duck, turn around, try to see what's going on. I walk out and close the door and then detonate it. And I hear the duck quack and the explosion and then open the door to see their bodies sprawled against the wall, one up on the shelf in the corner. And it's like that classic Hitman slapstick comedy becoming the meta best way to play that you're the most rewarded for. Like, though, that's the type of like this becoming the best thing it could be.
Yeah.
That it didn't used to be. That always used to be a fun diversion, and now it is the goal.
I have a tough time with Leo. Respect the hell out of this passion. No doubt in my mind, you love this experience. It's your favorite game of all time. I think it's freaking awesome. I think you have run it so far up this hill. I just have a tough time thinking about it in terms of like, Zelda is at least 3 of our number ones. It's going to be in the top 3 for a lot of us. Janet said it's a better version of the best game ever made. She doesn't know why she's not putting it higher herself.
Baldur's Gate 3 is why she's not putting it higher.
Yeah, there we go. It's just like that is a lot to overcome with. And again, all due respect, I'm aware of how I'm phrasing this, but ultimately a new way to play old content with Hitman Freelancer. I think that's a tough thing to conquer Zelda with.
Yeah, it's I think I wondered going into this, do these people have a Hitman Freelancer in their life? Do they love something like I love this, a game?
Have I ever felt love? I don't know. I'm starting to question it. I'm not gonna lie.
And I feel like there are some people here whose Baldur's Gate 3 is Hitman Freelancer to them, but I don't really feel that Tears of the Kingdom is anyone's Hitman Freelancer.
Ooh.
That's true. Look, I mean, there's no doubt that you love this game more than anybody loves any of these games. I have no doubt.
It's a measurment of passion.
It is, but it's a lot of passion.
He doesn't feel that way about Baldur's Gate, but he does feel that way about Tears of the Kingdom. And I kind of, in a weird way, am inclined to agree. That's why, like, Ben, when you asked before, like, which one's more passionate? I feel like I'm getting more passion from Leo Hitman, who's one person now, than Tears of the Kingdom. And I love Tears of the Kingdom, but also I'm personally not gonna run it the way I ran Baldur's Gate 3, which is also why Baldur's Gate 3 is higher for me. Tears of the Kingdom is my number 2. I love the hell out of that game, but I don't love it as much as Leo loves Hitman. So
yeah,
I also love Hitman. If that helps.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know.
True.
Like, but so it's like, I don't know, if you're asking me, does Leo love it more? Yes. Then okay, put it at number 2, leave it there. If you're asking me what I think should be there, it'd be Tears of the Kingdom. So which question do you want to ask us?
I'd love to hear from some other folks who haven't weighed in on this. I think we're all in agreement. Baldur's Gate 3 number 1. Is there any debate there?
I'm happy with that. Yeah, I mean, you guys.
That would make me so happy.
It's funny. I started playing it, and my wife was like, "Why are you playing it?" They're like, "This is not. You're not gonna like this, right?" And like with that acknowledgement, like me knowing that it's just not gonna be my game. Like you guys absolutely sold me on like why this is so important to you guys, and I'm happy. I'd be very happy with that as a number 1, even though it's not my number 1.
But how's everybody else who hasn't weighed in yet feeling on number 2 versus number 3, Zelda versus Hitman?
I really want to say, just to be crystal clear, because it is a new way to play old content, it is still more of a new Hitman game than Hitman 3 was. It feels so completely different. All the targets are new, so many new mechanics on top of it. I truly feel it feels like a newer Hitman experience than Hitman 2
Not
was.
to mention, if you don't have all the levels and you just have Hitman 3, it lets you play all the levels via Hitman Freelancer. It like gives you those levels. So it's almost kind of like you're getting all of those levels just by playing Freelancer. Even the DLC ones.
Also, if you wanted to be snarky, you could say that Tears of the Kingdom is also a new way to play old content.
Well, but the puzzles are completely new, though.
As they sound like they are in Hitman Freelance.
Yeah, and then I'm just say Resident Evil 4 is a new way to play old content. Turns out a lot of these games are based on other things.
I feel like we can kill that argument as being very reductive, and I think it comes down to the question of an individual's passion versus how many people have it as number one versus how passionate are they about that number one, and that's weird. That's weird. Weird question. I mean, like it's a question I don't have an answer. I also don't have an answer to.
Yeah, it feels like a good time to say no matter which way we go on this, like 50% of the people are going to disagree with how we did it. This feels extremely coin flippy to me. Like, I don't see one answer that's like objectively the correct one.
I'm honestly, I'm a coin hovering in the air flipping at this moment myself, where it's just, I respect the hell out of their passion, and I just keep coming back to it's Tears of the Kingdom. Like, so many of us love this game. It's an avalanche. But there's one blazing hot car driving through the avalanche. This metaphor analogy doesn't make sense, but
Fast and Furious.
Built with Ultra Hand.
Can we flip the conversation and look at it in terms of like how angry people would be if in the number 3 spot?
No one's going to be outraged about any of this. It's just a matter of I want to have the right read on passions for the group. And yes, you're right. That is the debate, is collective passions versus somebody's blazing hot passion.
I know Janet kind of sidebarred this because it is a weird thing, but can we just vote? Can we just be like, who wants to see Hitman at number 2?
To be fair, we already did. And I'm waffling. Kyle was the only person who said that he wanted to see Zelda at number 2.
I initially did as well, but also, again, it just depends on what question you're asking. I think we should figure out...
I feel like we didn't actually have... the vote did not get counted.
I think we should just figure out what lane is it going to be in. Are we going on how you want it ordered?
No.
Like yourself?
No.
So we're going on passion then?
Yes.
So then it's
Hitman.
Yeah.
Well, then it's Hitman. Then what are we talking about? I don't know. I guess if people feel more about Zelda, they can.
It's what do you want the MinnMax list to be as opposed to Janet's list?
Yeah.
We know we're making 2 different lists. My list is Alan Wake at number 1, but I'm happy that Alan Wake is number 4 on the MinnMax list. Like,
And Freelancer's my number 9, but I just would love to
No, and that's the thing.
Leo, don't joke during this moment.
No, I mean,
we're trying to save you.
If it's MinnMax's list, I think Zelda is so high at the top of so many people's list, it's silly not to put as number 2.
Well, and that's why I think we should vote on it, because I disagree.
Leo has been known for Hitman. Hitman is like the one thing that we know Leo for.
I don't know anything else about him.
I wrote a book about the Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, but I know too many things about you. Like,
you have other aspects to your personality.
You're always bringing up this other stuff, you know?
That's so fair.
Kids, food.
I mean, Leo
Movies. You're all over the place, Kyle. Pick a lane.
I'm weak. That's so fair to say.
Leo has almost put as much time into Hitman as Kelsey has for the Xenoblade series. So that's why I think Xenoblade Chronicles series DLC should be get up there.
The whole trilogy, over 500.
Ah, damn it.
That's about, I'm probably near 500 with the Xenoblade series. So.
New contender.
So we're peers.
Probably a million across 30 Zelda games.
Okay, Jacob, rally the vote. Phrase the vote, pitch it, we do the vote.
Yeah, just like, hey, who wants to see Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom as number 2 on MinnMax's top 10?
Oh, what are we at? That's 4?
That's 4. Yeah.
4 versus, what's the other number?
5, I think.
5.
Yeah. All right.
Are we keeping the list as is. Is this happening, ladies and gentlemen? Speak now, forever hold your P's and Q's.
It really is kind of important to me for Hitman to be number 2 above Zelda, because Zelda is, cool ass game.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's cool because it's going in the direction of Hitman. And Hitman was Hitman and then chose to leap a million years past Hitman this year. And so it feels like the comparison of the two, I might really hang my hat on that.
So the Zelda roguelike will be awesome.
I'm kind of happy with. I know we always try to avoid putting these lists to a vote, right? Like that's not really what these lists are ultimately. But like we're in such a position now with this insane year of amazing releases that like frankly I'm happy with it coming to a vote and like taking those results, honestly.
And to be clear, for the audio listeners, it was me, Kyle, Kelsey, and Jeffem that said Leo should shut the up.
I'm happy
the
with
vote
it too.
also makes it clear how I felt is like I feel very strongly about Zelda, and I raised my hand to make that clear. And Leo
Also, for the
deserves
record,
a
I
win
made a
every couple of
pained
years,
face.
people.
Yeah. Okay.
Should not be part of the conversation. It does feel like the last time we'll be able to celebrate
in 6
Hitman.
months. Like, let's do this for Leo.
Thank you.
Sarah, are you happy with these 2 10s?
I'm very happy.
Is everybody happy with these 2 10s?
I'm happy with
Yeah.
1 through and then 4 through 20.
Here we
I'm
go,
happy
everybody.
with it. I'm happy
From the bottom up, we have Super Mario Brothers Wonder, the making of Karateka. It's just so funny to go from like these slam dunks to back down to like, oh, what is this down here? All right, sorry. Super Mario Brothers Wonder, with all due respect. The making of Karateka, Shadow Gambit, The Cursed Crew, Cities Skylines 2, Octopath Traveler 2, Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Future Redeemed, Venba, Chance of Sinar, Chia, Lies of P, Marvel's Spider-Man 2, Dave the Diver, Sea of Stars, Hi-Fi Rush, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Alan Wake 2, The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, Hitman, Freelancer. Is there a colon in there, Leo? How do we...
Oh, I don't know.
Okay. And Baldur's Gate 3 is the game of the year from MinnMax. 2023, everybody.
Love it.
God, that was a fun one. That was a fun year, and my God, that was a good debate. Love it. Thank you so much, obviously, to everybody who has watched or listened, everybody that's made it this far. Unbelievable. Congratulations to you all for making it to the end of this long and lonely road. We greatly appreciate it. We hope you enjoyed it, and obviously, thank you for allowing an outlet like MinnMax to exist by supporting us directly on Patreon, patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. Again, you jump in at that $2 tier. It's all we're asking. Find the tier that's right for you. Help support us directly, because these discussions literally can only happen because people like you click through that URL for patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. And special shout out to everybody at the $10 tier, the Backstage Pass tier, because you're about to enter the pissy zone, everybody, where we unpack how we really feel about everything that's happened here. But hey, Janet, Jacob, Jeffem, Kelsey, Kyle, Haley, Sarah, Leo, thank you so much for playing so many games and unloading all your thoughts in these discussions. It's super fun, and I know the community enjoys it because I enjoy listening to these, even though I'm sitting in on it, and listening to so many other outlets do the same thing. It's a blast. So thanks so much, everybody. Greatly appreciate your patience for these long recordings. All right, that's it. Any wise words before we send this sucker off?
Bring on the piss.
All right. Again, $10 supporter. You can hear us unpack all this stuff in a more candid way. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Be good. Have fun. Let's go.